Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
What's up, everybody? A pleasant good evening to you all, and welcome once again to this special Thursday night edition of the DueDissidence podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss, here with Russell Dobular in glorious mid-speed Wi-Fi tonight. Hopefully an improvement. Yeah, Russell Dobular in the house tonight. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. Russell, you hooked that Wi-Fi up this afternoon, is that correct?
Yeah, I didn't even know. I ordered my Wi-Fi so long ago, and Spectrum sucks so bad that it wasn't until I had to replace equipment I found out I was getting 30 megabyte speed.
Yeah, we did a system test today and found out you were getting screwed. First person in the history of New York City to be screwed by their cable and internet provider. Who knew?
Actually, it was on ABC. It was on ABC.
Yeah,
ABC on your side. They put that on.
Exactly. History in the making. Well, thank you, folks, very much. Let's do a little bit of a like check here. Like check. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Let's get some more people in here. We have a great crowd in here to start the show tonight, and we have a great show this evening. We do want to just announce, and we're going to be talking about this more later, obviously, but we did go into production for our first dissident documentary yesterday. We met the great Jose Vega in person, and we recorded about a 4-hour interview with him, and we are very, very excited about that upcoming documentary film, which will be centered on both the political evolution and the guerrilla activism of the great Jose Vega. We will be featuring Jose's work on the show later this evening, and we will be playing a little sneak peek, a tiny little taste, a tiny little morsel of the footage, which we released on Twitter this morning, but we will be playing a sneak peek of that documentary later. But that was a lot of fun. It was the most time Russell and I ever spent in a room together by far. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, I'm really excited about that project. I think it's going to come out really great.
Like we had lunch once, and he dropped something off once.
Exactly.
That was it before this. I don't know if Jose is going to be willing to participate in the future, because right off the bat, you didn't fulfill your promises. Right?
Oh, you talking about the bagels?
You were supposed to bring bagels. You didn't bring any bagels. You bring these crappy Dunkin' Donuts. That
Well, let me tell you a story about those Dunkin' Donuts. I'm going to save that till later. First of all,
a little bit. You got a little out of order yourself.
First of all, I didn't even think about it. I just figured a dozen donuts would be appropriate, since there were going to be 4 of us there. I thought Jose's mom might be there, so I wanted to bring stuff for her. And I figured rather than asking what kind of bagel everybody wants, how do you take your bagel, this and that, it was 6 a.m. when we were shopping for those bagels. So I figured let's get a dozen donuts and a box of Joe, which, by the way, I have a great story about that.
That's a good breakfast for 4-year-olds. You've been around 4-year-olds too much.
Hey, we got through it, man. Sugar, caffeine, that's how you get through a shoot that early in the morning.
Honestly, from eating those bagels, I kept having a sugar crash, man.
I was like donuts.
From eating the donuts. I'm like in the middle of interviewing him, and I can feel the sugar carbohydrate crash, like making me start to nod off in the middle of the question. Like, oh shit, I got to drink coffee to balance out the sugar crash.
Yeah. Now, all right. Well, listen. Now that we're on the subject, okay. I was going to save this for later in the show, but now that we're on the subject, those in the audience, guess how much Russell Dobular, Mr. Man of the People, guess how much a box of Joe, the Dunkin' Donuts box of Joe,
unbelievable,
right? Which is, the case of coffee with the milk and the packets of crap and the few coffee cups and a dozen donuts. Guess how much in the chat that costs in Harlem, in New York City. This is not Tribeca.
And this is Harlem. Yes.
This is Harlem. Okay. I will give the audience a moment to put in their guesses. A box of Joe, so a box of coffee and a dozen donuts. We will take your guesses here. While we're taking those guesses, though, I want to both address
no Googling.
No Googling. I want to both address our first super chat of the evening, which is also our first headline of the evening. So long story short, thank you for getting us started with a $2 donation. Are we doing a little RFK tonight, or were you saving that for next time? No, we will do that tonight for you. Thank you very much for the question. Turns out Marianne Williamson has some competition here, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., to challenge Biden for the White House. So he is in. So now there are 2 official candidates running in the Democratic primary, and Biden is, of course, set to announce, not officially, but we assume he will announce probably May or June sometime. Would be my guess.
We're still collecting signatures for Bullis, so it's not official. Yeah.
Right. He hasn't filed yet. Right.
He hasn't filed, so it's not official yet, but it will be with your support. So just keep those super chats coming into our campaign efforts.
And keep subscribing to the channel.
Keep subscribing.
That's the most important thing.
The most important thing to change this country and to put a progressive agenda on the national menu is to subscribe to our channel and give us super chats.
Right. We're trying to table these ideas. This is very important. And so please
We're trying to platform them. We want to platform them. But yeah, Kyle, I heard, was really upset. He was really upset. He did a video about how the 3% of the vote they were getting has dropped to 2.7 now.
Yeah, I mean, I think Marianne probably will have RFK beat. I mean, to run as a schmanti-schmaxer in the Democratic primary, I mean,
he's in the wrong party.
I mean, why not recruit a drug-smuggling drag queen to primary Ron DeSantis next time for governor of Florida? You know what I mean? Like, that's the exact equivalent.
Like, I guess as a Kennedy, he just cannot become a Republican. But, I mean, if you're running on that, why would you not run as a Republican? As a Republican, he would do all right, probably. Like, they would love the idea of a Kennedy convert the way that Libs love Steve Schmidt and Nicole Wallace. Right. They would love it if fucking RFK Jr. ran in the Republican Party as an anti-vaxxer. I don't think he would beat Trump and DeSantis. I think he'd be good for at least 15, 20%.
Maybe not that much. I would say maybe 5 to 10. But it's funny. I mean,
it would depend on the campaign he ran.
Yeah, that's true.
By the way, I did pay attention to the coffee guesses. Tusker came closest.
Yeah, I paid attention to the coffee guesses as well. But yeah, the Krasenstein brothers, Ed Krasenstein, posted something on Twitter to the to the effect of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., famous conspiracy theorist. I just love the idea of smearing a Kennedy as a conspiracy theorist. Like, half the guy's family has been murdered by the deep state, and yet you're going to smear him as a conspiracy theorist. That's pretty low. That's pretty low, I will have to say. All right, let's take some guesses here. All right, well,
shows a complete lack of irony.
Extra Bull is a New Yorker, $30. Not a bad guess. Ben, 27. Looks like to me, I mean, you're a little over, but it looks like the 2 closest are Cortez, $365, and from what I can tell, Charlie Hess at $40. Where was Tusker
I didn't
at?
see those. She was at 38.
Okay, well, that's close. But yeah, box of coffee and a dozen donuts in Harlem. 42 smackers. This is why filmmaking is expensive. $42.
It's the donuts.
Wow.
That Scorsese never talks about that.
Right.
It's really the donuts that blow the budget out.
That's what blows it out.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's why Lincoln almost didn't get made.
Right.
They looked at the donuts. All right. So look, those of you, it's going to depend on what age group you're in. But I was talking to Kynan about this. Okay, so at some point, and it's very strange, nobody ever talked about it or commented on it. Dunkin' Donuts completely changed the way they made donuts. Just one day, they decided, you know what? These are Americans. They'll eat any shit that we shovel at them. And we could spend about half the money on donuts that we do. And one day, the donuts just got smaller. And they used to be, when you get like a good donut from a diner and it's kind of airy and light and fluffy. Mm-hmm. That's how Dunkin' Donuts used to be. And now they're like hard and chewy and tiny. And yet they were right. People will eat any shit that you put in front of them. Because New York, actually, Dunkin' Donuts has the most retail outlets of any store in New York City. There are over 2,000 Dunkin' Donuts in New York.
Yeah, Dunkin'
and they're fucking garbage. They're garbage.
The donuts themselves are quite garbage. Well, that's
garbage. Their coffee sucks. There's nothing in there that humans should be eating. It always reminds me of when Jack LaLanne used to say, would you give a dog this for breakfast? You'll kill the dog. So why would you eat that?
I
just
think
disgusting shit, man.
Extra Bulla Krispy Kreme is the GOAT. I do like a Krispy Kreme donut, indeed. I think I am pro Krispy Kreme. I mean, there are some independent donut shops. Now the city, this is like the idea where Kramer had his idea for the PB&J store. In fact, Extra Bulla, President Bulla, future President Bulla. I'm sorry. I meant no disrespect by that.
President-elect to be.
Yeah, future President-elect, inevitable President-elect Bulla. We were talking about on your Festivus show how Kramer's PB&J store would really take off now. A lot of those gimmicky, yuppie ideas for New York would be huge.
Yeah.
Like the PB&J specialty store where it's like $12.
Yeah, like all potatoes, all rice pudding. Yeah,
exactly. $12 for an artisanal PB&J sandwich, right?
Sure.
Like that would take off. There are a lot of donut shops like that in New York City, too. I haven't tried all of those, but a good old-fashioned Krispy Kreme donut is not bad. I will say that. I think those are quite good. Better than the Dunkins.
If you're just going to resign yourself to a life in sweatpants, go for the Krispy Kremes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right.
Why fuck around?
Do
not pass go. Just
exactly. Alrighty, folks. So we have a decent crowd in here tonight already. A really, really fun show planned for everybody. And so we are going to start out with...
You aren't going to believe what those wacky libs got up to at the Trump indictment.
Yeah, no, indeed. You are not going to believe that. That is fantastic. That is definitely the highlight segment of the evening. That is the big marquee headline segment, as we should say. But we have quite a bit that we want to get to here, so we will start out with just some quick headlines here. Obviously, big news out of Chicago on Tuesday night. Progressive Brandon Johnson scored somewhat of an upset victory against conservative Paul Vallas, beat him 51-48. That is a big victory for progressives in the Windy City. I want to just put up a map here that sort of shows how this happened here. So this is the Chicago primary map on the left, the sort of jungle primary with the 4 different candidates, Vallas, Johnson, Lori Lightfoot, incumbent at the time, and Congressman Chuy Garcia. And then obviously the 2 who advanced to the runoff on the right-hand side, Johnson and Vallas. I call this map a tale of 2 phalluses. Vallas, unfortunately, failed to become king of the phallus.
Only one is circumcised.
I never noticed how much Chicago represented a soft dick. It really does. It looks exactly like it.
I mean, I lived pretty close to the balls.
Oh, so you were up in the O'Hare area? No, that doesn't make sense.
No, kidding. I was I was closer to the tip. Yeah, I was closer.
Yeah, you seem like more of a tip guy than a balls guy.
Yeah. Well, because I was towards the west, so that's a little more on the balls side.
The balls side, but it's not the balls.
It's not the balls, right? It's not up that. That's like the suburbs up there. That's like
right, exactly.
The suburbs are the balls of Chicago.
Yeah, right. Exactly. This tells it all, how this happened here. And I suspected that this might happen. I suspected that Johnson might win because in the primaries, as you can see here, purple was incumbent Lori Lightfoot. And so as you can see here from Austin to the Loop area down through the Englewood area, Lightfoot did very, very well in the South Side. And it seemed pretty predictable to me that Johnson was going to get that Lightfoot vote. I can't imagine too many people voting for Lightfoot in the primary and then turning around and voting for Vallas in the general. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. In fact, if you look at this map, Brandon Johnson won very few areas in the Democratic primary, or the jungle primary, I should say. Since it's like a runoff type situation there.
It's a nonpartisan,
Right. But he picked up all of the Lightfoot areas, just about every single one of them. He cleaned up there, and that was enough to put him over the top, 51-48. Whereas if you look at Vallis's map, Vallis is represented by the sort of fuchsia color in both. He did not expand his map at all. Like, there's not one area that he lost in the primary that he went on to carry in the general. So Johnson really consolidated all of that support that went against Vallis, with the exception of some of the Chuy Garcia areas here. You can see in green, that area kind of went pink. Other than that, it all went to Johnson. So you have Vallis failing to claim the phallus, and now you have Johnson, king of the Johnson. There you go.
There are a few interesting facets of this that are not headline facets, so they're not getting a lot of coverage. Like, there was virtually no youth turnout in either the primary or the general. I think it's foolish to project national trends off a particular city, particularly cities that are very much their own entity, like San Francisco or Chicago or New York. Like, they're essentially countries in and of themselves. They're city states with such complex local factors going into their elections that it's hard to project out from that. I will say, though, Bernie did go in and campaign for Johnson, and it didn't do a damn thing to boost the youth vote. Now, I do feel that does reaffirm some of what a lot of people have been saying, that the way that the Bernie campaigns were treated by the DNC, combined with the total collapse of the squad as a meaningful progressive lever in Congress, why would these kids vote? It was always hard to get them to vote. And now you've told them that this is all a show. It's all a lot of bullshit. Doesn't really matter who you vote for. So I think that's interesting. Also, he came out of the teachers union, and the teachers union has been organizing politically since Rahm Emanuel. They've been organized. They first organized as a bulwark against Rahm Emanuel. So the local Chicago press is really seeing this as that movement come into its own. The Fraternal Order of Police, which was in Vallis's corner, they don't have that. They don't have a network. They don't have a war chest for political spending. They don't have an army of people to go out door knocking. So there was really nothing to counterbalance that.
Yeah, I mean, this was very much teachers versus cops, right? Because Vallis had the police union on his side, and obviously you had Johnson with the teachers union backing. Lightfoot had neither union in her corner during the primary, which is really what spelled doom for her campaign. But you also have, like, look, this is definitely, I mean, perhaps this wasn't the way the progressives wanted to win. They would have liked a bigger youth turnout, but they have to take the win. This is definitely a huge win for them. It's a huge opportunity. It's also a very high-risk opportunity. I mean, this is really the first big chance that progressives have had to prove that they can run a major city.
Well, this is another thing.
And to, sort of quell the fears of a lot of the normie voters who are afraid of getting their cars jacked. I mean, this is a high-risk, high-reward situation here. You can kind of tell me de Blasio was the test run in New York, but not really. He was very much a machine politician. He ran Hillary Clinton's 2000 Senate campaign. I mean, he was a machine guy. Yes, he's to the left of most Democrats, but he's like a Katie Porter type. He doesn't really represent the progressive movement in the way that Johnson does. And so this is an opportunity for them. And if they do well, it'll definitely do good things for the progressive brand. If he doesn't, it'll have the opposite effect. So we'll see what happens.
I think it may be a Pyrrhic victory because he's inheriting a budget with triple the shortfall of last year. So that makes it very difficult to maneuver, particularly on crime, because that kind of economy tends to create the kind of poverty that leads to crime. Now, he is diverting $150 million into alternative forms of policing and taking it out of the police budget. that is going to be a big test case for that kind of an effort. My fear would be that Chicago crime is going to continue to increase due to factors that he has no real control over. And that's something that people are going to use to discredit that entire effort. But we'll see.
We will see. All right, there is a connected story here. There's another election that we want to analyze and respond to, but it is 8:30, and I promised these guys I'd have them on at 8:30, and these guys are not known to wait their turn. They don't like waiting until it's their turn to speak. These are people who like to speak when they come to speak. Jose Vega and Kynan Thistlethwaite, what's up, guys? How are you?
I'm good.
Doing well.
Yeah, I'm
Doing
lending
well.
my star power to you guys so we can,
I know, man. You wasted no time promoting our documentary. Jose is the subject of our first dissident documentary film, and we filmed that yesterday at your place in the Bronx, and you were on Hard Lens Media this morning already plugging the project, so thank you for doing that, my friend. And Kynan, it's great to see you again as well, obviously. How you guys doing?
Good. We were about to intervene on you. We were waiting a little too long. You know,
I know. I was like, we better get started because otherwise, I try not to make any classic literary references because I know you fucking LaRouche freaks. You know your Dante and you know your Shakespeare. If I give you an opening, you're gonna burst in and say, "Oh, speaking of that," you know. Yeah, exactly. So I made sure to get you guys on in due time. So yeah, I mean, we filmed this documentary.
It's very big of you to let the bagel incident go, man. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem. No, it's okay. It really pissed off my mom though because she was cool with you guys coming as long as there were bagels. And when she saw there were only donuts, well, she was really
oddly enough, I got a dozen donuts, partly because I thought your mom was going to be there. I thought, well, I should get a dozen donuts because it's 6 o'clock in the morning. I can't call for a bagel order and stuff like that early. And
no,
so
she was okay. She had the bagels that were left over. It was all good.
The donuts, we left her a donut and a half.
We left her
about
a donut
3 cups worth of coffee.
You couldn't even tell that the half was bitten into.
Yeah,
we cut off the edges.
Right, we trimmed around it. But yeah, so you guys are going to sit in with us for this segment here, and then we are going to play a little sneak peek of the documentary that we're doing on Jose. Kynan, you're going to get some screen time in that documentary as well, I promise. I felt a little awkward. I felt bad because I'm thinking, oh man, it kind of sucks that we can't interview Kynan also. But like I said, $42 for a thing of a dozen donuts and a case of coffee. That gives you an idea of how expensive it is to shoot these things. So if we did 2 interviews, we would have to do more. Like if it wasn't going to just be on Jose, it would have had to be on everybody, and we didn't have the time or the budget to do that. But also, Jose with the Trump voting from Bernie bro to Trump voter to AOC stan, I felt like it was perhaps a more complete timeline, but Kynan, I promise you will get some FaceTime in the film, not just through the interventions, but we're going to play some clips from you guys showing up on the pod also. We're going to play some clips from the YouTube show.
Also, the truth is we got an anonymous email saying you were a CIA plant, and we got another one saying that you were a narc.
Wow.
But Kynan really shines.
We had to investigate that. Yeah. We had our guy look into it, and it doesn't look like there's any truth to it.
Kynan, if I remember, you're in Queens, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so that would have been another toll because we would have had to go over the Triborough too.
Yeah, it's a pain. I get it. And listen, Jose's life is much more interesting than mine. I'm not afraid to admit it.
I don't know if that's that necessarily, but he's got a few years on you, right? What are you, 19, 20?
21 actually.
Oh, just turned 21. Congratulations.
I looked. Yeah, I had my first beer, just a couple of weeks ago, so that was fun.
Your first legal beer or your first beer?
First beer.
First beer, yeah.
Really?
My first beer, yeah.
Yeah, first beer in air quotes. Yeah, exactly.
So for a young guy your age, what's it like to contemplate spending the rest of your life at Guantanamo? Like how many more years of freedom do you feel you have?
I'm not sure. Well, listen, if I'm doing what I'm doing, intervening, and I end up in Guantanamo, I'll be happy with it. So
Yeah, no, you guys are brave guys, as we will demonstrate right now. So, Kynan, you
now,
actually...
Now that Cheney's gone, I don't think they do the rectal feeding anymore, so you won't have to worry about it.
I hope not.
That's something to... That's comfort of a sort, right?
We should stop doing these, Jose. I don't know about this.
Are we discouraging you? Sorry. But anyway, let's get into this. So, Kynan, you actually got this intervention started. It was a brilliant moment to step in. So, this was an evening with Nancy Pelosi and Paul Krugman, right? What was the event? What was it?
Well, it was at CUNY Graduate Center, and I guess it was, Paul Krugman, this guy just interviewing Pelosi on her political career and stuff. But I'll just give a little bit of context to what Pelosi was saying before I intervened, because she was talking about the 2008 financial crash, and she said it was like navigating through, Dante's 9 circles of hell. And I'm like, wow, that's perfect. Okay, I'm going to stand up right now and say, yeah, you know what? I think Dante would have to create another level of hell for you just to, exist in. But, yeah, that's the context of it. Unfortunately, we didn't get that in the recording, which sucks, but,
Maybe if it surfaces, we could put it in the movie. But here we go. Let's play this
nobody
intervention.
seems to have that lead in. We looked.
Yeah, well, we will try and find it. This is from Monday night in New York City. Nancy Pelosi and Paul Krugman featuring Kynan and Jose.
See, that's a very good place for you in the depths of hell, because for some reason you have a very bad obsession of getting us into war. Hey, why is it that you did not admit that there were no WSDs in Iraq? You lied us into a war in Iraq. You got us into an invasion of Afghanistan.
It's a shame we can't edit out the baying sheep.
People are impoverished and are
noise.
dying. Why don't you tell the truth about Nord Stream?
People.
Why did we destroy Nord Stream? We're leaving millions of Germans without energy. You have a knack for getting us into war. People like you should be arrested. You are war.
Look at them.
Hey, Congresswoman! I came to see a warmonger, but you're a sad old drunk. What happened? When you went to Taiwan, were you looking for Ukraine? Did we blow up the Nord Stream on accident or on purpose? Did you know about that? Aren't you supposed to be part of the indictment tomorrow? You're a war criminal by definition, Miss Pelosi. You got some nerve. Is that why you're here in Manhattan? Is that why you're here? Because you're getting indicted tomorrow, you goddamn war criminal? How many people have died in your fucking name? Huh? How many people have died because of Iraq? All of you forgot about Iraq? Get out of here! Iran, Libya, Syria.
Dodd-Frank was always never going to work. If we don't deal with the $600 trillion in derivatives, then there's no chance for this economy. Don't you see it all failed? None of it worked. None of it worked.
We worked for these idiots in the audience. That's why they're so dismissive.
And then you land your plane in Taiwan. We want a war with China at the same time. We want to all have nuclear bombs dropped on our heads. We live in Manhattan.
I have to ask you to leave. Thank you.
By the way, Lyndon LaRouche is back in a big way, and I'm here on behalf of everybody who loves peace and not war with Russia and war with China and a new hot war with the East.
I couldn't tell. That guy at the end, that wasn't you again, Kynan, was it?
No, that's our friend Dewey.
Oh, okay. So you guys had everybody there that night. Yeah.
Had this whole squad out there.
Yeah.
The intention was, at least on my end, I'd never done stand-up before, but I was thinking, like, wouldn't it be funny if this was like a night at Pelosi's or something?
Yeah.
You know, like as if like we walked into like the wrong comedy club or like the worst comedy club or something. I had other stuff too. If like you get paid $100 million to do this, or I had something like, you know, you're funny, but you're not Dave Chappelle funny. And I wrote all those down. I was like, you know, these are okay. And then it came to me like, oh yeah, you're a sad old drunk. There you go. That's good.
No, the drunk, that was the best one.
I mean, that was perfect.
Yeah.
That was perfect. Look, man, I say this every time I see one of these actions. You kids have got some balls on you to go in and do that to Pelosi. And all the other figures you've done it to. That is supposed to happen in a democracy. Yeah. People have forgotten that. Our politicians are not supposed to be worshipped. They're not entitled to a damn thing. They're supposed to work for us. Oh, you had a hard... Look at the shock and the horror of those fucking old mummies at Nancy being treated that way. That's exactly how these people should be treated. If they got treated that way a little bit more, we probably would not be in the position we're in.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, I would just say, because Russell referred to them as old mummies, and I know amongst the most divisive things we've ever touched upon in the 4-year history of us doing this show in one form or a second or a third, is the okay boomer stuff, right? The generational divide. But I'm sorry, like, you guys are in your 20s and you have this woman who is the symbol of the rotting out of our political system. I mean, nobody symbolizes that as perfectly as she does. And you have all these geriatrics in the audience, these septuagenarians, octogenarians sitting there, hanging on her every word while she's being interviewed by Paul Krugman, the saddest suck-up in the modern history of this country. This guy just grovels at the Democrats' feet.
Laureate. He won an award. Okay, relax there.
He grovels at their feet cycle after cycle, thinking one of these days this has to get me a job in a White House, and it never happens, right? But he keeps doing it anyway. And you have them booing and hissing at these two young guys who are rightfully very worried about the future of the planet that they are going to have to live in for the next 50 years, not the old scumbags in that audience. So I'm sorry, there is a generational element to this. And the people, boomers, not all boomers, obviously, there are some boomers who watch this show. You are exempt from this.
Actually, a lot.
Right? You are exempt from what I'm saying here, obviously. But boomers as a whole should not be surprised when they hear this generational rage coming from younger people, because by and large, they are indifferent to the harm they have wrought on this world and the shape that they have left this world for the young people who are taking it over. It is just a simple fact. If young people, if boomers did not vote, Bernie would be in his second term right now. Now, I'm not saying that would have solved all the world's problems, but we'd be further along than we are now. That's just a fact. And so they shouldn't take too much offense to that. If some of the boomers in the audience want to unsubscribe after hearing me, good luck figuring out how. That's what I have to say.
Look, I'm also coming
Where's
at it
the
from
how do I what?
It's not even really. I'm not even coming at it from an age perspective. I'm a New Yorker. I know these people. These are a bunch of fucking Upper West Side mummies entombed in their fucking condos that they bought for a song 30, 40 fucking years ago. And they don't have the concerns of the current generation, which, okay, fair enough. But you motherfuckers know enough to know that it is not the world that you grew up in anymore. That the challenges that these kids are facing are of a completely different order and magnitude.
I paid my way through City College,
economy.
when it was $70 a semester.
It was zero when they went to college.
Yeah, zero, yeah.
It was zero. It was zero until the 70s. Until the late 70s, it was free, and it was quality. They used to call City College the poor man's Harvard. Colin Powell went there. Sonia Sotomayor went there. It wasn't like bullshit state education. It was high quality for free. That's the world that you people came up in. And to see them just amused, it's so much a decadent aristocracy. They're all very amused. They're not even threatened, they're amused. Because they can't imagine any real threat to their power.
I can't let you insult my college education. You know how important it is to learn about all the 27 genders that exist now.
I remember you telling me earlier. Do you go to CUNY or do you go to Hunter?
Hunter is a CUNY.
Yeah.
Oh, Hunter is a CUNY now. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I go to Hunter.
No, it was always a
CUNY. Okay.
Always a
I must have
CUNY.
thought it was a SUNY at some point. I don't know. SUNY, CUNY.
No.
Well, maybe when they were at Lehman College. But, you're completely right, because the whole boomer generation is the me generation. I mean, that's what the counterculture was kind of about. And I mean, not to rag on the counterculture, because it should be ragged on, but there's consequences to having a me generation. Right. You only care about you. What about the future? There is no future.
Right. And that's why once their testosterone levels dipped, they say, "Oh, Ronald Reagan will let us keep our money. Well, we'll vote for him now."
There you go.
Right? It was all about free love until they weren't interested in fucking anymore. Now they just wanted a house and a yard and money. And so Reagan offered them, "No, okay, fine, we'll go with that." Right.
That's right. There you go. You got it. You hit the nail on the head right there. And the question is then, how do you create a society that actually cares about the future and its posterity? That's right. Why LaRouche is back in a big way, and we're here for all friends, all friends of people who don't want a war with Russia or China, or a hot war in the East. And that's why I appreciate what Dewey said there at the end. We had this conversation, right? One of the things that always survives the test of posterity is classical culture.
We talked about that when we interviewed you yesterday.
Are people going to remember Drake 50 years from now? I don't know. Or whatever SoundCloud rapper went viral. Most people don't even remember that one song, Carly Rae Jepsen, Call Me Maybe. Or I guess maybe I'm the exception there because I remember it. But nobody talks about it anymore.
Actually, since you brought it up, this is kind of perfect because we were talking about this a little bit when we were at your house. So I went back in the chat of our last live stream when I said that they're throwing out the canon of classical literature because you can't read it. And I could tell, that some people's feelings were hurt. I could tell that because that's when they call me grandpa. When I hurt their feelings, they're like, "Yeah, Russ is getting all grandpa." But then I read it. I was like, man, I shouldn't have put it that way. Actually, that was shitty. So actually, I'm going to correct that. It's not that you can't. You can. You definitely can. Look at these kids. They can. You have to put in the effort. And I would say it's harder now to do that because the technology distracts people so much. They don't cultivate the powers of concentration necessary to read a Tolstoy, to read a Kafka, to read a Melville. It's not that you can't. I taught myself to play piano at 47. I was playing recitals 3 years later. You could do whatever you set your mind to. So I want to apologize. I shouldn't have put it that way. And actually, not only you kids, that was almost like God talking to me. This week, I had a tour group from Ohio, not rich kids, a poor town in Ohio. These kids were naming philosophers to me I never even heard of myself. And they were really intelligent. And I asked them, I was like, they were asking me questions about, because I said something about gentrification, and that opened it up. They start coming up to me going, "So do you think that the dollar is going to collapse as the reserve currency? How much longer do you think civilization has?" Like, I was like, what? Dude, I've been giving tours for a long time. I have never had students come up to me and start asking questions like that. So I asked them, I said, "So do you kids read classical literature?" And they said, "Yeah." But they came from this town where like the main industry was like a gas plant. Like my first thought was they must be rich kids getting private tutors, but that wasn't the deal. They were actually from this like rough Rust Belt town, but they were incredibly intelligent. So I asked them that. They said, "Yeah, most kids our age don't, but we make the effort to do it." So that is out there. So that's what I would say. And you guys, having gone through this with the Schiller Institute, you could probably speak to it as well. Like, it's not that you can't, it's that people don't. I'm arguing there's a value to it, but maybe you can speak to that in a way that they'll take more seriously because you're more their generation. They think I'm just being nostalgic.
Go ahead, Kynan. I spoke at length at this on the documentary.
Yeah, no, it's a serious problem. I mean, I actually fortunately have one good professor in my college. He's actually Greek, and the entire curriculum is actually classical literature. We started off with Homer, and I think we're ending, sometime around Dante and Boccaccio. So I think, it can be taught and it can be appropriated so that younger people can enjoy it. I think it's just the way it's taught, and Jose and I have experience with it because we ran a summer program in, I think it was, 2019? 2019, right? In the West Village at a church, and we put on a performance of A Midsummer's Night Dream by Shakespeare. Yeah, remember that? That was a lot of fun, and they actually enjoyed it, because you make it relate to their lives. You teach them, like, listen, this has value.
Well, but explain that, because I think when I looked back at the chat, that was some of what I was getting pushback on. Like, I don't watch the chat because I'm too ADD. I'm going to pay attention to it and lose track of the show. So I stopped looking at it, but I do go back and look at it later. And yeah, some people were pushing back saying it's relative. It's just different. It's not that the culture now is inferior. It's just different. It's a different medium. I'm arguing that it actually is inferior. That I'm arguing that it's rotting out your brain. And it's a Marshall McLuhan thing. It's the medium is the message. That these mediums are not good for you neurologically. That the way your brain exercises from reading a book, from the written word, is just different. And when you had a culture where that was the main means of transmitting information, the level at which they wrote was at a higher level because people's brains were more conditioned to be able to handle language like that. I'm not reevaluating that. I just shouldn't have told people you can't do it. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean that.
Well, I mean, the other thing you have to realize is, like, Bach's music was so important. A lot of it is in a religious context. A lot of it is not. But what's so important about it is that he's actually performing it and writing it for a largely illiterate population, right? Because the illiterate population does go to church. And so how do you get these ideas of what's happening in the Bible in such a way that people can actually understand it? And so when you listen to, like, St. Matthew's Passion from Bach, you can cry and be like, wow, this is like such a beautiful story, and the Bach only enhances it. Or Shakespeare was actually known for writing the plays that people would go and watch, right? So people would go watch these things because they couldn't read what he would put out. But these actors at the time were so good that people could actually understand the language that a lot of teens struggle with today. And that's the other thing too. You don't have actors today that are good enough that can actually get the language of Shakespeare and make it make sense to teenagers. Because we've had performances where people come up to us and say, did you change the script or something? Because I was able to understand what was being said.
Right. You know what? Well, you guys probably know we come out of a theater background. I never produced Shakespeare for that reason, because I felt like you need a level of quality, not just of actors, but actors who are specifically trained to that. I mean, a lot of actors would get mad when I would say this, but I used to tell them, look, saying that because you can act in Shakespeare, that's like saying because you can play the drums, you can play the guitar. It's not, it's another art form. It's another thing. You have to specifically learn how to do that. And the 2 semesters you took in college, that's not enough.
Oh man, see, I disagree a little bit on that, but this is not a theater debate show, so we could go back and forth on this forever. But I think Shakespeare is so extraordinarily well written that when I was introduced to Shakespeare, I hadn't read it much, but it's so well written and it was so clearly written by an
I'm not talking about reading. I'm talking about
right. Yeah. No, but what I'm saying is, from my point of view, because it was so well written by a guy who was clearly an actor himself, it is so easy to read Shakespeare once you can get the language, once you understand what the words mean, which doesn't take that long either. It's so well written. It is so easy to go through that script and mark down where your actions and objectives begin and end, because it's written with such precision, not just poetically, but it's written with such precision in terms of it is a true blueprint for actors. And so I found it very easy. Once I learned the words, it was like, man, this is mapped out for me in terms of objective motivation, action. To me, Shakespeare is the best for an actor. It's the easiest once you get the language down for that reason.
Yeah. And I'll just say one more thing. I don't know what happened to Jose, but we got to remember Yeah, they got him.
They got him. That's
Well,
it. The NSA found out we were having this conversation.
He said he had to go a little before 9, so maybe something happened or whatever.
Okay. Well, I'll go shortly as well. But Shakespeare essentially invented the modern English language as we know it today, and added so many different words to the vocabulary. So it's inherent in us. We can understand it with a little practice. It may seem old and antiquated, but it takes time. But on performing it, I mean, you have a problem with oration today, where people can't even read a poem without sounding so robotic, or how they teach you to read a poem, shall like compare thee to a summer's day, and it just sounds completely off. So I think we have a literacy problem among youth today, because when they read it just sounds off. So they should be taught to perform it rather than just reading it for the plot, reading to understand it. But it should be performative, I think.
Jose's here with audio only. Jose, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you. I know you have to go soon, so before you go, let me just play.
Hang on. I want to get one more thing in here since we're on this.
10 minutes.
We have Jose.
Oh, we got 10 minutes. Okay, fine.
Jose, we were talking a little bit, just to put a button on this, about the fact that a lot of people who want to throw out the Kynan are arguing on the grounds that it's white, that it's specifically for white people, created by white people. It's all about white culture. It's oppressive. It's colonial. So what would you say to that?
I would say that classical culture is one of the most universal shared experiences that any human being at any point in time can and will understand, relate to, and be inspired to, no matter who they are. And I think that's the point of what classical literature is about. It's what makes you truly human. And what makes you truly human is not the surface level stuff that about us. It's not just the color of our skin that makes us human, or the fact that we can breathe. Actually, no, a good piece of art or a good piece of music or poetry actually gets you to understand what we say is called between the senses, right? Because a joke is not funny because of what is said. A joke is funny because of what's not said, right?
Right.
You guys have delivered jokes before, right? It's always the irony, right, that makes something funny. But you can also have that on a higher level of something called like the sublime, right? Why is it that at the end of the Shakespeare play, when the villain gets forgiven and he gets mercy, why is that more impactful and more powerful than just getting vengeance and calling it a day, right? Or why is it that people can cry at a piece of beautiful music? I mean, look, I'm not a Prokofiev fan or a Shostakovich fan, but I know people can feel sublime at some of those pieces too. But Beethoven is the ultimate example. When you listen to the Ninth Symphony and you get to the last movement, the Ande Freude, the Ode to Joy, and you're listening to that music, praise to joy, the God-descended daughter of Elysium, the rest of the Schiller poem, it is the most moving piece of music ever. And Beethoven understood that. I don't think Beethoven would have wanted his music to be exclusively played in music halls. He would want it in the streets of Harlem. He would want it played by people in Harlem. He would want his music played in everybody's home, anybody who could be exposed to his music. And as he said, whoever understands my music, if people understood my music, there'd be no more wars. That's what he said. And yeah.
Well,
there you have it.
All right, so before we let you guys go, what we want to do is we want to play for our audience here what we played on Twitter this morning, which is just a little piece of raw footage that we shot yesterday. This is unedited, not sound mixed, not color corrected, not anything. This is just the straight footage, a little piece of our upcoming documentary on Jose Vega. So let's go to the video right now.
Kynan and I stood up and yelled at AOC. She didn't see us. She saw the ghost of her former self. She saw somebody, herself, with that same fiery passion and spirit that she once had. And she saw that in us. So she saw herself in us. And that's what really freaked her out. That's what really messed with her conscience. Because when you're in that kind of position of power in the Democratic Party, could be also Republican Party, you have to make moral concessions. Okay, I have to put aside my moral compass because if I want to get something done in Congress, I have to play their game. As Jamal Bowman put it recently, I'm playing the long game. AOC's playing the long game too. And I'm sure if she heard this, she would say, I don't know what I'm talking about because I don't know how things work on Capitol Hill. You know, things aren't as great as I'd like them to be. You have to do this and that, and you have to work with this person and that person in order to get what you want. But there was once a time when AOC was saying, I don't care if I'm a one-term congressman. You have to cause a ruckus. And I think what freaked her out is that she was on the other side of that.
So there you have it. It's a little taste of what is to come. We hope you guys enjoyed that sneak preview there, and we're going to be editing this film together, and we'll hopefully have it out late spring, early summer. That is the goal. But it is 9 o'clock, and I know you guys said you had to go, so Kynan.
Well, we're trying to avoid the Indiana Jones opening weekend.
Yeah, right, exactly, right. Trying to get it out before the big summer blockbusters hit. Yeah, exactly. Kynan, Thistlethwaite, and Jose Vega, keep up the excellent work, guys. Always great to see you, and we'll be seeing a lot more of you.
Thanks a lot, you guys.
Thank you.
All righty. Thanks, guys, very much. Have a great night. All righty. So, obviously, Jose and Kynan have been getting a lot of love for good reason, but they got a lot of love from another YouTube commentator who Russell watches from time to time and who actually featured our guest spot on Sabby Sabs in a video that I guess came out either last night or this morning.
Okay, for me, that was like the experience of a musician, I think, hearing their song on the radio for the first time, because it was the first time I ever watched a video not knowing I was in it.
Right.
It just came on. I was like, what? What? It was very strange. It was very strange.
Yeah, Russell's talking about a YouTube channel which has quite a few followers called The Black Conservative Perspective. He did a video on Kynan and Jose's intervention against Nancy Pelosi and made an observation that many of us over here on what we would consider the quote-unquote real left have made over and over again these past few years. So let's hear him. This is right after he played Jose and Kynan's piece of activism there. Let's hear him for a moment.
See, they've heckled Jamal Bowman. They heckled all these people on the left who claim to be progressive at one point. I actually believe that Nancy Pelosi was a so-called progressive, right? At one point in her career, she was a progressive. And, you know, progressives are supposed to be anti-war, okay? But that's not been a war that Democrats have not supported. I mean, Republicans as well, too, until Trump came along and he changed it, right? Trump made the Republican base anti-war because he basically said out loud the lies that everybody knew about the wars that we have been getting into, like, for example, the Iraq war, where...
All right, there you go. So there you have it, right? And here's a guy who's obviously a right-wing guy who says, hey, wait a minute, I thought to be progressive meant to be anti-war. And he is correct that Nancy has, at one time in her life, certainly called herself a proud progressive. That was the whole thing, the whole lecture she gave. Hey, for every cause
I've got a sign in my basement.
Exactly. I've got signs in the basement for all these progressive causes that the young people champion now. So it's, you know, it's interesting. It's kind of refreshing to see someone on the right able to make that kind of distinction, because there is a tendency on the right to sort of lump everyone to the left of Mitt Romney. Like, everyone left of Romney is Che Guevara, right? Yeah. And so it's nice to see, you know, somebody able to recognize the sort of nuance and the rifts on our side of things as well.
Well, I've mentioned this to you before, you know, now that he actually used a clip with us in it. It was Sabby's show. You know, maybe we can get him on at some point. That guy, his name is Greg Foreman. His channel is The Black Conservative Perspective. And yeah, for one thing, that cat is like the hardest working man in YouTube, because if you drop something on Twitter, 10 minutes after it's trending, he's got a clip up of it. He works it. But yeah, like, look, he's a conservative. I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but he's not crazy.
No, he has a very nice way about him. He's got a very pleasant, everyman way about him, right?
Sure,
he's not mean-spirited like a Matt Walsh or abrasive like a Ben Shapiro.
Right.
He's a regular dude, you know?
Right. Yes, he does not express views that make me cringe. He expresses views that I feel like that's why I'd like to have him on, because I feel like we could debate him politely, in a polite way, where nobody would be screaming at anybody, unlike the people we're going to see later.
Screaming.
But
That's the least of it.
But that anti-war, no cowbells involved. You'll get that later, folks. So, yeah, hearing him articulate that anti-war view, that was what I heard on the ground when I was walking around talking to the libs and then talking to the MAGA people. One of the most common comments I got from MAGA people was, did Donald Trump start any wars? What wars did he start? Why are we in Ukraine? Now, this is supposed to be a left position. It's supposed to be a left position. And looking at a guy with a channel called Black Conservative Perspective, who on war clearly is far to the left of what our corporate media will tell you the left is. It's what I was saying, I think, on Savvy's show. It's like a taffy factory of ideology exploded and pieces of it went everywhere. There's a piece of it here. There's a piece of it there. There's a piece of it there. Frankly, and we'll talk about this more when we play my compilation of interviews from the Trump indictment. If you were going to try to persuade people, you need to be able to talk to them. And the people who would talk to me were the conservatives. The liberals, you could not talk to them. You could not talk to them because they have cultivated the idea that if you in any way present any kind of challenge, it's like dealing with a Scientologist. They behave exactly like Scientologists. Scientologists are trained to shut down disagreement, to start screaming at you if you try to challenge their beliefs or their ideas, because it's a cult, right? They can't afford debate. They can't afford rational thought. It's the same thing there. The conservatives, they're confident in what they believe, and they feel like they can debate you. And they also don't react like you've been sent from hell if you disagree. You don't all of a sudden get this. You'll see when you see the video. But watching that on it's called the Black Conservative Perspective, right? It's a conservative show. It's right there in the name. It's a conservative show. And that is to the left of anything you're going to see tonight on CNN, anything you're going to see tonight on MSNBC. That's an opinion that won't even be allowed on those networks, even to be disagreed with. They won't even allow that perspective on those networks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, so we are going to do a few more headlines. We did this show a little out of order because we had to make sure that our surprise guests were able to wrap by the time they had to. But, of course, our patrons are the backbone of the show. You can help fund projects like the documentary with Jose, help us pay for the Dunkin' Donuts coffee and donuts, like I said, by going to patreon.com/DueDissidence and signing up. You can also
next time
sign
we'll go
up.
to a Greek diner for the donuts, man. Those donuts sucked.
DueDissidence.
Fuck Dunkin' Donuts.
.substack.com is right in your neighborhood.
There goes that sponsorship.
Well, you know what? The reason I went to the Dunkin' Donuts is because we arrived at Russell's place about 13 minutes too early. And so I called him. I said, hey, we're down here whenever you're ready. He said, well, I'm not ready. You said 6:30, so I'm going to be down there at 6:30. So I'm like, all right, fine. I saw there was
stepping in the shower.
Oh, you were stepping in the shower. Well, so you got ready pretty quickly, actually. I said, there's a Dunkin' Donuts around the corner. I saw one. Let's just go there. So I parked the car. My friend Seth Colgrove, who was very, very kind to help come and work crew that day, he ran in with the company card and got a $42 box of coffee and dozen donuts. So there you have it. That's how that goes. But our patrons are what make the show happen. Seriously, there's no way we could have made this film without you guys. And so thank you guys very much for your support. We got our second patron scroll coming here. And while the patron scroll is happening, why don't we take care of some business here? We got some super chats coming in. We'll knock these out before we get to our other headlines here, just making sure we didn't miss any. I don't think we missed any. All right, we got quite a few to get to. Thank you guys very much. Abiding71, thank you for the 99 cents, my friend. We appreciate that. Laugh here. I remember 66 equals the H, so your screen name is Laugh. That was an entertaining Sabby stream you did. DD and Sabby, two of the best streams around. Everybody hasn't seen it should watch it. You guys are funny enough to do stand-up. Well, thank you so much. And here's the 50K. Well, thank you. We appreciate that, and we appreciate Sabby having us on. It's always great to talk to Sabby, and so that was a great time that we had on her show. And she really struck gold by streaming the MSNBC or the NBC News stream of Donald Trump's speech, because they cut out right in the middle, and we reacted to them cutting out, and that's actually what caught the Black conservatives' eye. He actually featured that segment of that clip on his show. But yeah, no, that was a really fun time. And we've actually gotten some invites to go on some other shows. Revolutionary Blackout Network, they were great to reach out to us, and Hardlens Media reached out to us. We will be working a time out with them shortly. Unfortunately, this is a really, really hellish week for both Russell and myself. Russell has the spring break tours wrapping up in New York City.
I'm in the last week. Oh, shit. Did Ozzy Osbourne die?
I don't know. Did he die? Oh, did he just die? You just broke that news, Wilfred Castle?
I'm going to the Googles.
All right. Russell's going to go to the Googles. Didn't he have Parkinson's or something? He had some kind of degenerative disease.
Parkinson's.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's sad. That's too bad. 1946, was he 75?
Hang on, did he? Because I'm not getting that on the headlines.
Yeah, maybe it's not. Maybe it's fake. I don't know. Anyway, where was I?
Debunked as hoax.
Oh, it was a hoax. Okay.
It's a hoax.
All right. Well,
that would have made me very sad.
Fake news.
Fake news.
I wouldn't have cared that much. I would have carried the show.
I would have been a little sad.
You Gen Xers in your Ozzy Osbourne, it's like, it's a soft spot in your heart.
You know what? The first album I ever bought was Blizzard of Oz.
I told you. Yeah, the Gen X and the Ozzy Osbourne, it's a thing. It's a thing. I wouldn't have cared that much. I'd have been just fine. I'd have carried the rest of the show.
He's like our Lawrence Welk.
Right, exactly. But yeah, so it's a brutal week for us between Russell's work and because the spring break is wrapping up, so a lot of the schools are in New York City, and then I'm moving end of next week. So we didn't want to take any interviews next week because we have a hectic enough schedule, but we'll hopefully be going on a second sort of circuit of sorts once I'm settled in Albany and once the tourists are out of Russell's hair. Tusker, thank you for the $3. We appreciate you always. And thank you for the $2 super chat. How were the bagels? Oh, sorry, he didn't get to tell you. No, he didn't have bagels. He had donuts. I'm never going to hear the end of that.
You never will.
I'm going to have to send Russell a thing of bagels. I'm going to have to DoorDash us.
And like good ones, like Kosars.
Kosars?
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Well, we wouldn't have been able to go to Kosars anyway. That's out of the way.
Yeah, I want my Bialys.
Yeah. Russell calls them daywalkers, but I call them the walking dumb. You're referring to the Pelosi audience, Virtuoso, I assume. But thank you. That's not a bad moniker for them. I dig that. And thank you for the $5.
No, well, when I'm talking about the daywalkers, I'm talking about the people who, they were into the Bernie thing and they really do mean it about Medicare for all, but they're also really, really convinced that men should swim against women. Those are the ones I call the daywalkers.
Right. I know what you mean by that. By the way, shout out to our Rumble audience. We have a decent crowd in there, and we don't get your chats on our scroll here just because the technology is not there for Rumble yet.
I'm gonna throw that up, even though it's not a super chat. So did I. I cried when David Bowie died. I did.
Yeah, you have that in common with Walter, our mutual friend who we used to team up on Facebook. He's a big Bowie fan.
Is he? Yeah.
I
mean, it was just I'm not like an insane Bowie fan, but it was just like Bowie.
Yeah, and he wasn't that old either. I mean? That's the thing.
He wasn't. He was like 70-ish.
Yeah, he was like, I think he was late 60s, early 70s, something like that. Yeah, so it's not like he got quite enough time. Okay, here we go. Ryan, thank you for the $20, Ryan. Appreciate that. DueDissidence on LaRouche is getting me all hot and bothered tonight. Yeah, LaRouche. The LaRouchers were here. No, I mean, look, that's
honestly what my wife said on our wedding night.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's honestly was as much. I mean, I obviously wanted to feature Jose's anti-war activism. It's a huge part of the film, obviously. But the other reason I wanted to make it is precisely for that reason, because so many people, I'm not saying you're guilty of this, Ryan, obviously you're not, but there were a lot of people when I would talk about Jose or when I would see him talked about on other shows, everybody would make a point to say, now, just to be clear, I'm not a LaRouche person. I don't endorse the LaRouche thing. And I'm like, you know what? The idea that that's more toxic than today's Democratic Party is just nonsense. Like, you don't feel a need to disavow the Democrats when you talk to a Democrat. So why is he like, why is this third rail kind of thing? It doesn't make any sense. So part of the motivation for doing this was to just have a long and in-depth conversation with him and document it in the hopes that people will come out of it not only sympathetic to his activism, but sympathetic to the idea that no one should be dismissed out of hand. You know, hear somebody out before you slap a label on them.
Well also,
and think of them as this toxic thing. Because Jose, as you guys know, I mean, if you've watched this show long enough, we've talked to him a bunch. He's first of all, he's a brilliant kid. He just has such humanity in him also. And there's nothing cult-like or scary about him or Kynan or any of these guys. And so it's just ridiculous. It's just the whole LaRouche moniker, you know, it's just a way to otherize people. And I don't believe in that. And then so that's a major part of why we wanted to do this film.
Well, that kid, Jose, is like he's a quirky genius. He has a science background. He was the lead programmer in his high school for their robotics competitions. He's really a brilliant kid. He's got a lot going on. And yes, you're right. The things that we normalize are sick. Right. And a lot of the things that we rule out of bounds are far better.
Right. Exactly. And so, you know, that like I said, that's part of why we wanted to do this.
I mean, they took these kids and gave them a classical education. So I don't see the Democrats doing that.
No, well, we get into that in the film, indeed. My dad gave us $10. Thank you, Dad. Go Kynan, go Jose, the dynamic duo. Yes, indeed.
Damn right. That's
Indeed.
why they're dressing up as Batman and Robin next time.
Exactly. Jose Alvarado, great job on Jose and Kynan. By the way, guys, I canvassed for Brandon Johnson in Chicago. I can tell you guys the young folks powering the IPOs pulled this win for Brandon. Okay, interesting. So you were a canvasser for the Johnson campaign. Excellent. So you're saying that they had more pull in here. Well, the IPOs, what are those?
I know IPOs initial public
offerings, right? Yeah. So I don't know what you mean by that. You're talking about
I don't understand that.
Are you talking about like younger, wealthier progressive, like
yeah, is that what he means?
Like Elizabeth Warren type progressives went out and knocked on doors for him? Is that what you mean? Because that's how that kind of reads. But yeah. I believe you. Thank you, Tom, for the $5. Why does Kynan's smile trigger a prurient response? Smile more. Well, thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. I'm sure Kynan does also. I'm sure Kynan appreciates that too. I think Kynan hung around in the chat too.
Where's the OnlyFans link for Kynan?
Right, we'll have to set that up. My dad again for $5. You played Hamlet at age 10 with my brother and the Lahanes. Yeah, our friend. I think we were younger than 10 actually, because the Lahanes moved to Washington D.C. when I was in kindergarten or first grade. We were 5 or 6, and yeah, we did a little filmed version of Hamlet for the camera. I don't know if I could dig that up for the Patreons. That'll be $1,000 a month tier, though, to have me embarrass myself in that way.
Which we're in the process of creating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we are going to create some new tiers. We are going to be publishing, by the way.
So Elon could be watching. You know.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. The tier, behind the scenes stuff, that little sneak peek that we put out of the Jose video. That's one of a lot of behind-the-scenes clips. We're going to be posting regular sort of raw footage and interview clips to our Patreon feed. So if you join at patreon.com, you'll get a lot of bonus footage from that film. We shot almost 4 hours worth. We're probably only going to use 45 minutes to an hour in the film. So we're going to have 2 or 3 hours worth of footage that the public's not going to get to see. But if you sign up at patreon.com, we will give you pretty much the whole thing. You know, we'll be releasing quite a few bonus clips from that interview, and it was all great stuff, right? I mean, when you're editing together a film, you have to be super brutal about what you absolutely need to tell the story, and anything you don't need, you don't put in. That's the rule.
You have much better
got to shoot.
than I.
Oh no, forget it. If he was doing this,
not
it'd be a
all.
4-hour film.
I did to Sabby what I do to Keaton.
This would be a Ken Burns thing. It'd be 10 parts. Yeah.
I dropped a bunch of content on Sabby like a half hour before the show.
Right, a half hour before, indeed. Indeed. Yeah, so anyway, if you sign up there, we will hook you guys up with all that bonus stuff. Lars and Ruin, thank you for the $5. Classic literature and history should be read and understand, or read and understood, I assume you mean. But yeah, I mean, look, those guys are obviously they're very, very passionate about that, and I think there is absolutely something to be said for that. Tusker, nicely said, Jose. I'm sure we should have probably. Unfortunately, they had to wrap at 9, so we didn't have time to take these while they were here. But I'm sure Jose is very familiar with you because he watches the show quite often, and so he knows Tusker as a regular fill-in host. Zach Boyles finally has a candidate in your race, in the race. So he's your Marianne, is he not? Zach RFK Jr. for president. See, you guys are doing the same thing now that the Marianne people are doing. What are you investing in a Democrat for?
Yeah,
Why?
Exactly.
Come on.
I thought better of you, Zach.
Yeah, come on. Get it together. Tusker, thanks for another $5 here. After the recent tornadoes hit Little Rock, I heard so many people saying, when are we going to get some of that Ukraine money? Yeah, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that at all. And I hope you're doing okay. I hope everything around you is all right. I think Tusker is actually in Little Rock, if I'm not mistaken. I know you're from Arkansas, and I'm in the Little Rock area. I don't know if you're in Little Rock proper, but hope you're faring well. The subscribers to Russell's OnlyFans get a shout out on your show asking for friends. You must have been watching the Sabby stream when I made that little joke.
I tried to start an OnlyFans. I ended up owing them money.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Emoji, why do Jose at all insist on attaching LaRouche? Well, I mean, Jose mentioned that at the end of this little interview we did, and one of his I don't want to say accomplices, but one of his colleagues there at the intervention mentioned that at the end. Look, I mean, if they're passionate about that, it's their right to include that.
Exactly.
Look, I mean,
that's what they believe in.
Right. I mean, look, if you don't want LaRouche represented at an anti-war protest, then go heckle but by all means, go and heckle one of these people, and don't bring him up. Right? I mean, they're the ones doing it, so what are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't police their language.
Put up
That's
or shut up.
violence. Yeah, right. Exactly. Kynan, thank you, Kynan. That's very sweet of you. You certainly did not have to do that. Here's $5 of the 40 you paid for in donuts, coffee, and tolls. Well, no, tolls, it was more. Tolls was out of my pocket. Yeah, I went over the George Washington Bridge. You can't pay cash or Easy Pass at the George Washington Bridge. What you do at the GW is you pull up to the toll booth, you moon the toll booth, and they shoot compressed air into your asshole, and then you get to drive by. That's how you pay to go over the George Washington Bridge. So, yeah, it was more than that, but thank you. I appreciate it.
And that's the New Jersey way.
Yeah, that's the New Jersey way. Arpoon, thanks for the $9.99. Give this to Kynan because his education is serving him well. Yeah, Kynan talked about his education the first time we had him and Jose on the show. He has mentioned that. Thank you for the donation, Arpoon. And Ryan, 5 more of that for the Taibbi episode last month. You guys have been killing it. Well, thank you, Ryan. We appreciate that.
Thank you, man.
Very, very much. All right, did we catch all of them, Russell? You've been pretty on it looks like, right?
I believe so. I've been trying to star them as soon as I see them.
Yep, looks like you got it.
Yeah, I think I got it.
All right, beautiful. Good teamwork there. All right, folks. No notifications for this stream. What the fuck, YouTube? Sometimes it takes them like a half hour or so. I don't know. Do you have the bell rang? If you hit the bell, then they should notify you. Perhaps we're being fucked with. But thank you, Pick Up a Pirate. We appreciate that. It's an honor. I mean, if we ever get throttled in that way, that's how we know we're breaking through, right? All right, so let's keep going here. Got a lot more to cover before the end of the night. We talked about the Chicago mayoral results a little bit earlier. We are also going to talk some more election results in the state of Wisconsin. We had some interesting results here. The liberal Supreme Court candidate, Janet Protestowitz, is how we say that name. Protestowitz. That's a tough one.
I mean, just getting elected with that name is an accomplishment.
Exactly, right? What politician gets elected with a name like that? She beat conservative Dan Kelly to win the final seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Yes, it was a comfortable victory. It's a 10-point victory. There were a couple of issues that hung in the balance here. Obviously, the issue of reproductive rights loom large in this race, as well as the redistricting and the gerrymandering of the national House districts here. This is an issue. This was a race that really played out very, very similarly to a lot of these statewide races in the midterms, especially in swing states. So as you can see here, Protestowitz with a fairly comfortable victory. The Wisconsin governor's race was considerably closer, as was the Senate race, but both of them went to the Democrats. And here it's the same story. So on midterms night, one of the things we made note of very, very early on in the evening was that Republicans were winning in the rural areas, but not by nearly as much as they needed to. And the same story happens right here. So obviously the conservative areas, the more rural areas, if you see, I'll go through, Kelly here wins 57-43, 70-30 in Taylor County. That's about the margin you'd need in all of these rural counties. But as you can see, he doesn't get it. 62-38, 53-47, 57-43, 52-48 here, 61-39, 64-36, 61-39, another 70-30, 57-43, 53-47. That's no good. You need to, as a conservative, you need to be running up 70-75% in those rural areas if you are to overcome the blue surges in the more liberal parts of the state. Southwestern Wisconsin is notably blue. Madison's obviously the most liberal city in the state. That's one of the most liberal cities in the entire country, actually. But not just the city of Madison, all these surrounding areas went for Janet, went for the liberal, and even traditionally conservative areas, Green Bay, Wisconsin, which normally goes Republican, the liberal actually pulled out a narrow victory in that district. So what you're seeing here is what you saw in the midterms, which is Republicans not running up the margins they need to in the conservative areas in order to overcome the Democrat surges in the cities. And, this was another predictable result. I predicted that she would win this race for the exact reasons that I mentioned, especially, obviously, the issue of reproductive rights. I mean, this abortion issue is just a killer for the GOP. Now, that's why, despite the fact that Democrats are so hated and that their brand is in the toilet, they are still competitive in a lot of these statewide races in traditionally sort of purple states because of this, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, the Republicans are running right up against the cousin fuckers. They can't win these rural areas as anti-abortion party. So, according to Axios, the Republicans, in their wisdom, decided to defend an 1840 abortion ban. 1840. So the governor,
Civil War,
abortion from 1840, which some
that's
legal
older than the brakes on the East Palestine trains.
Well, we're in
1840.
We're in uncharted territory here with this. So some legal experts are saying that the state has to take action for that to take effect. Nobody's really sure, but no abortion provider is going to risk these maniacs throwing them in jail for 20 years. So the abortion has been suspended. And the Republicans, in their wisdom, stopped Evers from knocking down that law. So that's it right there. Like, they are between a rock and a hard place with this entire issue. You know, they cannot continue with this abortion extremism, but at the same time, since Reagan, for 43 years, they've built their entire political base on being these anti-abortion fanatics. Now that the dog has caught the car, they can't figure out how to get out of it. It's like their first instinct is serve the base. But now that Roe v. Wade has been struck down, you can't play that game anymore. You can't play we're against abortion, because now it actually has consequences. Now voters who might want abortion to stay legal no longer have the protection of Roe v. Wade. Now voting for you maniacs is actually going to cost them their abortion rights.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And I think this segues nicely into another segment. We were going to do this a little later in the show, but I think given how related these two stories are, when we talk about the sort of stasis that's set in, because I've said in the past, I think so far at least, things can always change, but I think so far the dynamics that drove the midterms are going to be more or less the same dynamics that drive 2024. So we're seeing something really interesting. What we're seeing is a sort of fracturing of realities. On the one hand, you have a country that is sort of coming apart, that is very fragmented, that is very at each other's throats. On the other hand, you have normie politicians being able to rack up wins come time to vote. And so this is something that's very difficult to make sense of. But Russell Brand went on the Bill Maher podcast, not Bill Maher's show, his Club Random YouTube show and audio podcast, and he broke down this dynamic, I think, really, really well. So let's hear this. He talks about how, yes, there are actions, there is widespread discontent, but at the same time, it seems as though the powers that be are doing an effective job of managing that sort of violent, that sort of violent, sort of populist sentiment, and keeping the shit to shoe level so it doesn't disrupt their spot in the sort of political and economic hierarchy.
And leading into this,
excuse me.
Say, you know, Bill Maher, you know, here and there, he does a good monologue or has an interesting insight. But he can be so tone deaf about his own economic privilege.
Yeah.
You know, he goes on about, I don't know if you're playing this part. It's a little earlier, I think, than the part you're playing. He actually started talking about how when he goes into like a restaurant, you know, he's not much different from them. You know, maybe you don't want to work today. We all go through that. I don't want to work today. And okay, that's true as far as it goes. But they're not going back to a fucking mansion. You know what?
Well, he went even
further. You know what
you
could do? You could quit. I'm sure you're set for life, Bill.
Right. Exactly.
They
he
can't
went
do
even
that.
further. He said, like, the waitress is not miserable. You know, the waitress has less money, but they're not miserable.
Like, do you
know
they
don't
get
paid to look miserable. They get paid to charm you.
Well, especially if you're Bill Maher.
you.
They're hoping you're going to drop a $500 tip on them because you're Bill Maher.
Oh, yeah. And even in the lead up to this segment, I cut in right after it. But Bill Maher says something so tone deaf as to like, well, nobody I know is on the streets protesting. It's like, well, yeah, of course.
Right.
You're a millionaire.
Who do you know who would protest?
Right. And so Russell Brand counters by saying, well, there are people protesting, but here's why that's not affecting politics quite in the way that we think it might, or that it is in a country like France. Right. So here's Russell Brand breaking it down very, very well, I think.
There are significant protest movements, but I think what there is a clear lack of a real vision that probably since Clinton and Blair onwards, no one is suggesting anything other than the management of decline, kind of intimate bureaucracies where we biometrically measure and manage our own health. No one's saying we could do something fantastic with America. Rhetorically, of course, great claims are made by either side, but no one's suggesting that we could reorganize society. No one's anticipating what the AI revolution is about to behold, the loss of jobs, the despair, the despondency, and that is likely to engender. And we were sort of seeing a return to feudalism. Yeah, in that beautiful film, The House I Live In, the great writer of that show, The Wire, said, when it comes to the opioid crisis and the addiction crisis in your country, he said, well, why don't we just admit that in a post-manufacturing America, we've got no need for 20% of the population. They're redundant now. They're defunct. We can lose them. And sometimes I think it comes down to simple demographics, that this nation can carry a good many deeply dissatisfied and unhappy people. And by God, it looks like it is. Because if this ain't nothing, all of this conflagration that's going on in this country, mostly it's seemingly housed around the culture war, where I think they're quite happy for people to quibble and quarrel and roar, because ultimately that doesn't affect the interests of the kind of the elite establishment interest that I'm interested in addressing.
I mean, that's just absolutely perfectly said, right? Yep. He says it's not nothing like the divides that we're seeing, that ire, that unrest. It is real. It's not that it's not real. It's just that the powers that be have sort of made a sort of accounting for that in their ultimate calculation. They're like, all right, 20% of our country are just going to be bitter and angry and disaffected, and we're not going to do anything for them. We're not going to give them any reason to be hopeful, but we can live with that. We can live with that, because the 80% that's not that way, they're the ones who are disproportionately going to vote, and we are going to make the options for those 80% two teams who both represent a different style of what he just said, which is management of decline. So if management of decline is what's on the menu, that is how they marginalize people who offer something different as kooky or unrealistic or unreasonable, right? Or they'll smear them in some way, right? The way they did to Sanders here, the way they did to Corbyn over in the UK, right? They will manage your options. And not everybody is going to buy their bullshit. But what Russell Brand said there that I think is so smart is that the powers that be have already factored in that a certain percentage are never going to be happy. And they've just written them off, and they have configured the game such that it doesn't matter that 20%, which we are a part of, is never going to be satisfied. They can just write us out of the book entirely. And so far, that has, for the most part, worked here at home. That's why you're seeing normie candidates win in these really unstable times. Because it doesn't make sense. You're like, how can things be going so poorly? How can it be? I paid $7.50 for a thing of Parmesan cheese this afternoon. It's this fucking big. $7.50 fucking cents. $42 for coffee and donuts.
Yeah.
How could the centrists, quote unquote, be winning? Well, that's how. He explained it right there. Better than I could. That's why I thought it was important to play that.
Well, and one of the things that he also talks about is that we haven't even begun to reckon with AI and how that is going to make a lot of the workforce obsolete. I said it on the show a couple of months ago. Why would they want universal health care? There are too many of us now. We have an economy that is not going to generate. First, it was the manufacturing jobs. Now it's going to be the knowledge workers. Now, apparently ChatGPT codes better. What's that going to do to the entire middle and upper middle class idea that you're going to go and you're going to learn coding and you're going to go work for Google, right? That's all going to be gone. They're not going to need these people. If it can write press releases, if it can write basic legal briefs, I mean, why wouldn't it? Like most law is not law and order. It's not this adversarial criminal law. Most of it is just contract law. A computer would do that better because you're relying on human memory of precedent to do that. ChatGPT would write better contracts. So you're talking about a lot of white collar PMC jobs going away. statistical analysis. Who's going to hire a person for that? Right? When you're able to really do the Star Trek thing, computer, tell me what the exact statistics are on how many viewers there were on this show on Thursday night. What are you going to hire somebody to do that for? Right? It's all those jobs are going to go away. You're talking about millions of jobs, and you're talking about a class that's not used to being impacted that way. So Russell Brand, he's right as far as it goes, but that 20% is going to become 60% like that very, very quickly.
You may be right about that. I mean, that is definitely an interesting point. All right, let's go to Clarence Thomas, shall we? We do that next. We're going a little out of order tonight, but that's okay. I think that's a fun one.
All right, yeah, we're jumping around. All right,
jumping around a little bit. Let's do Clarence Thomas. This is a fun one. I mean, this was a report by ProPublica, and Russell read the entire original report. I didn't have a chance to read the entire thing, but I certainly got the gist of it. And they put out a Twitter thread here revealing that for decades, Justice Clarence Thomas has secretly accepted luxury trips from a major Republican donor. Newly obtained documents and interviews show. The extent and frequency of these apparent gifts to Thomas has no known precedent in modern SCOTUS history. They did a kind of Twitter Files type thread on this. We will read the first.
It's interesting that they chose to do that.
Yeah, that's the new thing, man. Taibbi, Schellenberger, they're
trailblazers.
Trendsetters. Indeed. Thomas has publicly presented himself as an everyman with modest tastes. In this documentary about the justice, he waxes nostalgic about his fondness for Walmart parking lots. We have to play this. This is hilarious. Hold on, let me get...
Especially in light of what comes after.
Well, yeah, right. This is an expose on him taking luxury trips on a GOP donor's dime.
You know, I don't have any problem with going to Europe, but I prefer the United States. And I prefer seeing the regular parts of the United States. I prefer going across the rural area.
No, this is way better than Prague.
The RV parks. I
Venice.
prefer the
Fuck
Walmart
that.
parking lots to
Walmart
the
parking
beaches
lots
and things like that. There's something.
You know, they say the Parthenon is nice. I say, give me a Walmart parking lot any day.
Especially the one in Duluth. That one's my favorite.
Take the Coliseum and shove it up your ass.
Normal to me about it. I come from regular stock, and I prefer that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, he's a regular guy.
Regular guy, right?
He's just like the rest of us.
But Thomas's friendship with Dallas-based real estate magnate Harlan Crow has allowed him to repeatedly experience luxuries well beyond his means. He's vacationed on Crow's 162-foot super yacht around the globe and flies on Crow's Bombardier Global 5000 jet. There's no audio on this video, but here's the private jet that he's flown on.
Maybe it's parked at a Walmart.
Yeah, right. He leaves that outside a Walmart parking lot. Hey, is there enough room in here to make a runway out of here? In June 2019, Thomas boarded Crow's private jet to Indonesia for 9 days of island hopping on Crow's yacht. Had Thomas chartered the jet and yacht himself, it could have cost him over $500,000.
Well, apparently he got over his reticence about beaches.
Right. Yes, indeed. It wasn't Thomas's first time on Crow's yacht, the Michaela Rose. I'm assuming that's how you say that. He went on a river day trip in Savannah, Georgia, and an extended cruise in New Zealand roughly a decade ago. There's that super yacht there, basking in the sun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
While sailing around New Zealand with Crow, Thomas autographed a copy of his memoir as a gift for a crew member. Thank you so much for all your hard work on a New Zealand adventure, reads the inscription.
Barely had the yacht landed before said memoir appeared on eBay.
The justice has gone with Crow to the Bohemian Grove, of course. The exclusive California all-male retreat and to Crow's sprawling Texas ranch. Every summer, Thomas typically spends about a week at Camp Top Ridge, Crow's private resort in the Adirondacks. And this is my favorite. This is the last that we'll read. Inside this resort, inside Top Ridge, hangs a photorealistic painting of one of Thomas's visits to the 105-acre property in remote upstate New York. The painting shows Thomas enjoying a cigar alongside Crow and chatting with other conservative power brokers like Leonard Leo. There's the painting of Clarence Thomas chilling out, having some cigars with the oligarchs who fund his vacations. Talk about brazen. This is like if OJ had a painting of him sniffing coke off a whore's tits with Judge Ito, right, after the verdict is hung out, right? It's like, talk about undue influence, right? There you have it.
All right, so a couple of interesting points from the rest of the article. So this may be in violation of a post-Watergate law, but they're really not sure if it is illegal. There are guidelines for what federal judges are supposed to do for lower federal judges below the Supreme Court level. According to Roberts, they use that as a kind of guideline. But it doesn't seem that there's any mechanism for penalizing Supreme Court justices for this kind of behavior. Doesn't seem that there's any law exactly.
No, it seems like you'd have to impeach him, which is not going to happen.
Have to impeach them. Right. So technically, you can do this. You just have to be an incredibly low-class piece of shit to do it.
Which he is. And has always been.
And has always been, right.
All right. I mean, he's beyond
I am
the
sure
conservative
Anita
ideologue.
Hill is not surprised by this. Well, yeah. I mean, his legal decisions have never reflected anything other than who put him in power. Like, he's never gone off script. Whatever wealthy, powerful Republicans want, that's his decision.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, he's just pretty brazen about that. And look, there are conservative judges. Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, even Gorsuch ruled in Stephen Donziger's favor. Obviously, it was a minority opinion, but he penned the opposition to that. And so, most Supreme Court justices, even when they are these right-wing sort of ideologues, they take seriously their position as the arbiters in the land's highest court. Like there is some sort of higher purpose that they serve where they won't rule party line every time.
Right.
Thomas is just a straight up hack and always has been.
Yeah. Right. He has, look, even Scalia, he actually believed in that shit. He truly was a constitutional originalist, and that was how he ruled.
Actually, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and him got along quite well. They actually respected each other quite a bit because even though they were on opposite sides of most issues, they were both serious about what they thought and they both respected that. And so there was that sort of mutual sort of respect there. In this case, I mean, this is, it's obviously surprising in its brazenness, and it's surprising that it took this long for this to come out. Look, that just says it all right there, right? I mean, you have these mega donors literally just out. I mean, they're bribing a judge, basically. I mean, that's what they're doing. Maybe there's a loophole they found around getting caught for it or getting penalized for it, or maybe there's a gap in the law somewhere that allows them to do that without going to jail. But it is open bribery. I don't see there. I don't know how you can think of that in any other way.
Well, of course, it's the kind of thing that you would read about, 19th century railroad barons sending a Supreme Court justice off for an all expenses paid vacation to San Francisco.
Right.
And it's right out in the open. And Thomas, being who he is, he's not going to resign. He's not going to address it. It would not surprise me if he doesn't even bother to comment on it. Maybe something perfunctory. That's it, because they can't kick him off. As long as they can't really make him face meaningful consequences, he's going to be like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, no, exactly. MICAOC, I like that screen name, by the way. How did he vote on the Donziger case. No, he voted, and as well as the liberals too. I believe it was 7-2 against Donziger. I think Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, if I recall correctly, were the only two who actually voted in Donziger's favor. And we were going to cover that more thoroughly in a previous show. I actually had Gorsuch's entire 5-page dissent on my computer. I think I got rid of it, but I'll find it again. Maybe we should do that on a future show.
We should cover it because that case is a fucking disgrace.
Yeah, it's just.
I mean, if there's anything to demonstrate that we no longer have a functioning legal system, it's the Donziger case.
Right. Yep. No, absolutely. I agree. All right, we have one more segment before our marquee segment of the night. I just found this interesting. Obviously, we focused a lot on electoral politics during the midterm season, and, we do some of it now when it is related to the news of the week. Obviously, we talked about Wisconsin earlier. We talked about Chicago earlier. But sort of politics junkie that I am, I'm a sucker for polling and polling data. And I get especially triggered, I suppose, when I see a poll not only misrepresents the world, but a polling outfit literally misrepresent itself in plain sight and trust that the people who read the poll are either too really stupid or not looking closely enough to see how the polling outfit itself is gaslighting and bullshitting about their own findings. So what am I talking about here? This is interesting. This came across Navigator Research. New poll with the siren light. A majority of Americans say Republicans should spend less time talking about wokeness. 55%, a net plus 31, including Democrats, plus 39, independents, plus 30, and not very conservative Republicans, plus 28. Even a plurality of very conservative Republicans agree that Republicans should spend less time talking about wokeness. Okay, so the headline there seems to be that America is rejecting the anti-woke rhetoric of the Republican Party.
No, they love it.
Right?
They love it. They love it.
Exactly.
They want more men on women's softball teams.
But here's what it actually says. Of course, here, majorities of Democrats and independents say Republicans should talk about wokeness less, along with half of not very conservative Republicans and 41% of very conservative Republicans. So when they talk about who should talk about it less, net 31, what they're doing is they're taking the Republicans should talk about wokeness less, and they are subtracting out Republicans should talk about wokeness more. But those headlines ignore this middle section right here, which says Republicans are talking about wokeness the right amount. So this plus 31 number here is not plus 31. It's actually plus 9. It's not 55 to 24. It's 55 to 46, right? Because if you add up the number of people who say that they're talking about wokeness the right amount with the number of people who say that they're not talking about wokeness enough, that equals 46 points. So it's actually plus 9. Over here, it's not plus 39. It's plus, 26, if my math is right? Amongst independents, they say, wow, look at this, a 30-point difference amongst people who say they should talk about wokeness less and they should talk about wokeness more, difference. But it's actually a 4-point difference. Actually, almost half of independents, 48% of independents, think that Republicans should talk about wokeness either the same amount as they are now or more. Amongst Republicans, it's exactly 50-50, and amongst very conservative Republicans, that's the most dishonest thing. They say a plurality of very conservative Republicans agree that Republicans should talk about wokeness less. Turns out a majority of very conservative Republicans agree that Republicans should talk about it as much or more. Right. So it's just an extremely deceptive way to present their own data.
And there's a number in here that they completely ignore.
Well, yeah, I'll leave it on the screen for that reason. Go ahead.
Okay, so black people who responded, straight out majority say that they should talk about it more, or they're talking about it the right amount. And actually, more say that they should talk about it more than that it's the right amount, by almost double, 35%.
More than any other group on this.
More than any other group. That is a strange result, given that anyone who questions any of this ideology is a white supremacist, as we'll also see in my video. This is something that the liberals have no idea how to deal with, that the African American community has some very conservative strains in it. This is actually part of the conversation I feel is missing from the Ron DeSantis African American AP course thing. We did a segment on that on the show. And part of what I said is, you know what? Yes, there should be such a course. They should teach Kimberly Crenshaw, and they should teach Thomas Sowell. They said there is a very strong tradition of conservative Black intellectuals. That is a big part of the community. And really, when you look at certain indicators like that, when you look at how African Americans answer about questions on immigration, you know, you could argue that the socially conservative element of that community represents the majority of that community, certainly on a lot of issues. That doesn't fit the narrative of conservative white supremacist bad white people, and then everyone else has the same opinion, right? They all have, everybody, Black, Latino, Asians, they all have the same opinion, and then white people all have the same opinion. The world's just not that simple. It's just not that simple. A lot of African American communities have very close relationships to the church.
Of course, yeah.
And I live in Harlem. It has the most churches per capita anywhere else in the country. There are over 500 churches in Harlem. Go tell these people that you want to have gender neutral bathrooms in their church. You go see what they say to you. So that poll, I think, reflects something that I see with my own two eyes. I've lived here for 16 years. You know, you want to see people who believe in like woke. You need to go downtown where it's white. That is where you're going to find people who really believe in that. And that's what you see in that polling. And that's consistent across other polls on this subject.
Yeah, I mean, look at the siren blaring. New poll, a majority of Americans say Republicans should spend less time talking about wokeness, right? They could have easily, if they really wanted to break news, they could have said, new poll, a majority of Black Americans, according to this sample size, think Republicans should talk about wokeness as much or more than they already do. That would be a
that's a man bites dog story.
Right.
Exactly. Right? But they completely ignored that statistic, even though it completely contradicts the entire narrative that they try to construct for everybody. That there is you see this across the board. You have what I think represents a very small minority of people within society are put forward as a majority, and they're not. It's a fringe minority of people.
Well, what you have here in this poll reflects what we've been talking about over the course of this show, which is a sort of political stalemate, right? About half of the country thinks that people should, hammer on wokeness more. About half of the country is very anti-woke, and about half of the country, not that half of the country are rabid wokesters, but to half of the country, there are more important things on their mind. That's why a lot of these races continue to be as close as they are, and that's why Democrats continue to fare fairly well in some of these purple state races, because wokeness, as much as as much as it's not a popular sort of framework for things, it's not as toxic as it would otherwise be if the Republicans weren't as terrifying as they are.
Exactly.
And so that's what you have there. Right. But you don't have this landslide sentiment saying, well, the Republicans should lay off the woke shit. Not at all. It's 50-50. Right. Like most other things nowadays. All right. Let's knock out some super chats and then we'll get to our main segment of the evening, shall we?
We shall.
All right. We got a few more in here. Zach Boyles, best case, Marianne's a psyop. Worst case, she's really that vapid. On the other hand, you have someone risked it all to fight censorship and medical tyranny. Yeah, look, I mean, look, you're welcome to support who you want.
We do have a candidate in the race.
We have a candidate in the race. That's true.
It's a little insulting. A little insulting, Zach, that you spend as much time here as you do.
And you're not on the bullet train.
Yeah, you would even think about backing another candidate. I thought if there was one person we could count on, it was Zach.
Exactly, yeah. Hit that like button, folks. Hit that subscribe button. We'll do a like check. I don't know how we're doing in terms of likes, but if you're here for the first time, please hit that subscribe button. We have a big crowd in here this evening. Thank you guys for staying up and sticking around with us. Given the amount of material we had this evening, it's actually coming in as a pretty concise show. We're only at the 2-hour mark. I thought this was going to be a really long one, given all the stuff we had, but I guess we've kept it professional. We've been influenced by Sabby Sabs, who's just a real pro. She keeps that show moving.
She is a pro. She is on it, man.
It's just, maybe her...
Like, that show ends on time. Like,
it ends on time.
And she ends at that time.
Exactly. Her professionalism has perhaps rubbed off on us a bit here. Cool Blue, thanks for the $1.99. Do you think the Republicans are deliberately trying to lose? No. I think what happened is what Russ said. They're the dog that caught the car, right? I mean, this issue paid off for them, paid off in quotes, at a time where they had the Democrats them on the ropes, and once that issue came back into the front of people's minds in the way that it did, it really screwed them. It really screwed them because they had the Democrats dead to rights, and then all of a sudden, their luck turned. And they're still competitive, right? I mean, it's not like they're getting blown out, but it's competitive for that reason. So, no, I don't think they're trying to lose. I think they use that Christian right support for 40 years, right?
Yeah. They got a lot of mileage out of it.
Right, they got a lot out of it, but, no car stays on the road forever, right?
Yeah, the chickens came home to roost.
Exactly. Virtuoso, thanks for the $2. Supreme Court justices are ironclad protected. Yeah, well, I mean, look, they'd have to impeach Thomas and oust him, and they simply do not have the votes for that. So You're right. Long story short, Russ, you ever see the movie Johnny Dangerously?
Gosh, I think I saw that back in the day, man. Who is that? Is that Joe Piscopo? Who is that?
I forget who's in that. I've heard of that movie, but I've never seen it.
Like I may have seen it. I don't know.
Tusker, can you go to the poll itself and see if they broke it down by income level? Perhaps I could, Tusker, but it would take some time. I don't think I could do it now, but I will look into it. I mean, some polls do that, some polls don't. It's not often that a lot of these polling outfits actually break it down along those lines. It's mostly racial lines. Democrat, Republican, Independent.
There is a poll on this subject that I've often used on the show that did break down political tribes that way. And they found that the most racially homogeneous group of political perspectives are social justice activists. They are almost universally white, and they disproportionately make over $100,000 a year.
Michael Keaton.
I was going to say that. Michael Keaton. Yeah.
People are saying.
That's right.
All right, folks. So our final segment of the evening is here. One Russell Dobular took his iPhone down to the courthouse here in Lower Manhattan to take in the scenery at the Donald Trump arraignment. So you take it away, and we got some video we're going to play in just a moment or two.
Okay, so I went down there, and they basically separated the MAGA people from the lock 'em up people. So it was pretty peaceful. It wasn't anything crazy. But I was very curious what would happen if I asked people if they thought George Bush should be arrested, of people of all political stripes. And what I found very quickly, I can't say to my surprise, although the vehemence I got was surprising. The libs went crazy when I asked that question. They went completely batshit. And when I asked conservatives, when I asked pro-Trump people that question, it ranged from yes to no, and I'm going to talk to you about why. Nobody went crazy.
Once again, this is, should George Bush be
George
prosecuted
Bush,
next? Right.
Right. Should George Bush be prosecuted? So I think this video, and I'll have a lot to say about it as we go, it demonstrates everything that we've said on this show over the years. It demonstrates everything that this show has been about. We cannot work with these people. We need to distance ourselves from these people. We need to scream from the rooftops. They're not with us. We didn't come to the party with them. They're not with us. They're not with us. So and you'll see why as we go, because I can't imagine a more repulsive bunch of creeps to turn off anyone you might try to convince of anything than the people that I encountered who represented that day.
All right, so you just let me know when to stop and start here. I'm working for you now. All right, here we go.
So do you think he'll be found guilty?
If justice is served, he sure will be. For this and all the other crimes that he's accused of.
So do you think we should arrest George Bush next?
Why? What is about this? What's this whataboutism? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, but should we? I mean, if we're going to hold people accountable.
You know better than that?
You don't think we should?
I'm not going to be baited by you. I don't care what you think.
Okay, so you don't think we should arrest George Bush for war crimes?
Once you arrest George W. Bush,
yeah, that's right.
Okay. What do you think? Do you feel that he should be arrested?
If a grand jury of average New Yorkers indicts him, then he should be arrested.
Exactly.
Well, you know, Michelle Obama called her partner in crime.
Oh, you're going after a black woman now, of course, because you're clearly a white supremacist.
So do you think that's why?
White supremacist, so you have to demonize the black woman and try to get your point across.
So if you, if you criticize Candace Owens, you're a white supremacist?
In your audience.
What if you criticize Candace Owens?
Is universally respected, whereas Candace Owens is a pathetic grifter.
Right. What if you what? This is what happens. Ask these people questions. They cannot answer. Well, this is a public place. I can do whatever I want.
I'm just going to ask you to take a step back.
Well, you have no right to do that.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't.
You're in my space, and I'm going to ask you.
You're in my space. I'm not in your space.
Get out of our space.
I asked if we should arrest George Bush. They went crazy. I guess they like George Bush.
All right, let me just pause this for a second. You realize how just like non-hostile the question was, and immediately,
they
immediately
went berserk.
Nuts. Yeah,
they went berserk. Like
you didn't ask
berserk.
It's not like you had a MAGA hat on and you were there to troll them, or that you posed the question in a trolling way,
or even that I asked, should they arrest Obama? Like you still shouldn't act like a demented 3-year-old, but you could. That's baiting, right? Like clearly they're liberal people, Democrats, right?
He went right to the whataboutism. I wrote a whole piece on whataboutism.
So easy. Yeah. It should be so easy. Yes.
Right. That's
of course. Instead, they qualify it. Well, if a grand jury finds him and that he's George Bush, just say yes.
Right. We don't know anything.
It's that simple.
We don't know anything. So we'll defer to a grand jury because we know absolutely nothing of what we're talking about. We have no real reason why we're here.
That's what they kept coming back to. Well, if a grand jury indicts him, they could not simply say, yes, George Bush is guilty of war crimes and he should be arrested. And yet they felt passionately enough about Donald Trump getting arrested for payoffs to a porn star that they dragged a banner down to the courthouse and they're standing out there ringing cowbells like an idiot. Over that, but you ask him, well, should George Bush be arrested? Well, you know, he danced with Ellen, so no.
Right, exactly.
Michelle Obama likes him, so no. And if you mention Michelle Obama, you're a white supremacist.
Exactly, right. No, just unbelievable. Tusker, I see you in the waiting room. We'll admit you once we get through the video. Okay, don't worry. I have not forgotten you.
Are you guys Republicans? Are you Republicans? Like, why do you not want to arrest George Bush? You know what? That sounds smarter than you do. So, do you think we should arrest George Bush? No answers on that? You don't know if we should arrest George Bush?
That's like a
You're not
Coen
sure?
Brothers character.
You know, Michelle Obama called him her partner in crime. I think she was saying, let's arrest him. Are we arresting George Bush next? I hope so. He's guilty of war crimes. Do we care about that?
Do you feel George Bush is guilty of war crimes?
Hang on. All right, so she's a MAGA person, and I don't in any way want to be deceptive. Like, look, she was nice. We had a nice conversation. She's a birther. You know, we're gonna drop the unedited versions of this, so you'll see for yourself what the whole conversation was. But I want to be clear. Like, I don't agree with her on a lot of things. You know, we were talking about, you know, she believed in birtherism and all of this kind of stuff. But she also believed that all of these people should be locked up. The Clintons, the Bushes, and the whole system is too corrupt to be redeemed, and we should start over again. So who can you deal with? This woman who doesn't freak out when I tell her I came out of the Bernie movement, as you'll see later. She didn't go nuts. She didn't pull out a cowbell. She didn't lose her mind when I told her I came out of the Bernie movement. She didn't lose her shit. So look, if you're going to try to persuade people, you can't persuade people you can't talk to. This woman, maybe you can't persuade her, but it's possible. Those people across the street, you might as well try to persuade a Scientologist. That's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with people in a cult. You're dealing with very damaged people with severe emotional problems. And that's why they're attracted to a movement and an ideology that emphasizes safe spaces and personal truth, because they don't have the confidence and they don't have the emotional stability to function in the world like adult human beings.
All right, here's
ask her the exact same question.
Yep,
Same question.
Here we go.
War crimes?
I'll back it up a second.
Arresting George Bush next? I hope so. He's guilty of war crimes. Do we care about that?
Do you feel George Bush is guilty of war crimes?
Possibly, yeah. Actually, yeah.
What about Dick Cheney?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
So, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Do you think we should arrest George Bush?
George Bush.
Yes! Yes!
Hey, I agree that's not a hard question, but I've had some people who have a very hard time with that question.
Has George Bush committed a crime? Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Whether he committed, anybody who commits a crime in the U.S. should be arrested and prosecuted. Now, whether he committed a crime or not, I don't know. I haven't heard, but I'm sure you're probably going to tell me he committed a crime somewhere in Mars. Maybe he took a light up there.
The part of Mars they call Iraq, maybe.
He committed a crime in Mars.
Do you feel that George Bush should also be arrested? Hang on.
No.
All right. So first, I thought these guys were Lubovichers, and when you see the more extended cut, I say to them, you guys are always trying to put the tefillin on me. It's a Jewish thing. And they were like, no, that's different people. So, okay. So they're just Orthodox Jews. That's why they don't have the payas and stuff. All right. So they're Trump supporters. A lot of the Jewish community, those Orthodox Jews, they tend to be conservative Republicans.
It's a conservative, yeah.
And particularly because the Republicans wanted to open the houses of worship. They were very angry about the synagogues being closed. Like, basically, these guys, the Orthodox, the Hasidics, they were definitely in the let it rip camp on Shmovid. So, you know, there's an earlier part of this where I did get them saying that they don't think that, Donald Trump should have been arrested. So, yeah, this is the Trump side of the park. They basically divided Collect Pond Park across the street from the courthouse. It's a MAGA and
Blue MAGA.
And Blue MAGA, exactly. Yeah. Red MAGA and Blue MAGA. And that's exactly how it felt. But I wanted to show this because later on, you're going to see I have another encounter with psycho Blue MAGA people. And I want you to see, I didn't softball it with the conservatives. I talked to them the same way that I talked to the liberals, but they didn't lose their shit. They kept talking to me, even though I was challenging what they were saying. I wasn't challenging what they were saying in a dick way. I was having a political conversation. And I will tell you something else. And you can see some of that in the other footage that we put out. You know what was happening on the MAGA side? And I'm not saying ideologically, I agree with them on some things, not on other things. There was a lot of conversation going on. There were a lot of people standing there debating charter schools versus public schools. And on the other side, there is no conversation. On the Libs side, there was no conversation, because how can you have a conversation when everybody's supposed to agree on everything? If you do have a thought that might be original, you'd be afraid to express it, right? Maybe you get cast out.
Right, exactly.
So there's no talking. There's only emoting. That's
right.
It. There's emoting, but there's no talking.
Exactly. All right, here we go.
Also be arrested.
No.
Why?
Why should he? Do anything.
Well, you don't feel he committed war crimes in Iraq?
Doesn't mean he should be arrested.
You don't think people should be arrested for war crimes?
You didn't. What war crimes?
Ordering torture. That's a war crime.
Did not order any torture.
Well, he did, though. I mean, we know that they tortured people in Iraq, and he signed off.
How do you know that?
I mean, that's a matter of record. That's not even a matter of debate.
Show it to us.
What's that?
Show it to us.
I mean, you have the Googles, right? You can go on the Googles. I mean, it's not like we know. We have the pictures of the people being tortured in Iraq. Like, it's not even a question.
Maybe they should go look at every single thing Obama did and try to arrest him also.
Well, hey, I wouldn't argue with that.
Maybe we should go, every single person here, every single person should, they should
war crimes aren't
interrogate right here, every single person, and maybe try to arrest them.
Well, no, I mean, I don't think most people have committed war crimes, do you?
Maybe yesterday someone here was speeding. We have to go give them a ticket. I think the cops right now should check every single speed camera in New York City and try to find every single person.
So would you compare ordering torture in a war zone to speeding?
No, but the point is that we're not here to look out for people. If someone does something, especially a former president should try to arrest a former president.
Do you feel that George Bush should be arrested?
George Bush? I don't give a fuck. We're here today celebrating. It's not about who else should be fucking arrested. Apparently, our system of justice has attempted in some way to hold someone accountable for crimes they believe they have evidence for. So let's let the system work. If everybody thinks it works so fucking well, let's see if it works.
So let me...
This is some kind of weird thought experiment you're doing with an agenda.
See, right here, starts to lose her shit.
Yeah. I'm not... Okay, so...
You're not entitled to our time.
All right, so let me just tell you something. The only... I'm actually on the left, but the only people I've asked this question who reacted this way were people on the liberal side. Nobody else I've asked this question has reacted this way. Okay, so why do you think so many people who are considered liberal or left are mentally ill? Like, why do you think they behave like emotionally damaged children? Why do they behave that way? Because I've asked a lot of MAGA people things they wouldn't like or they wouldn't agree with, much more so than anything I just asked. And none of them behave this way. None of them behave like this.
Have you seen the light now? You're away from Bernie yet? Or you're still a socialist?
Well, I'm a democratic socialist.
Ah,
I don't know if he
okay.
is at this point.
Yeah, there we go.
But on the other side there, I asked them one question.
Mm-hmm.
I asked them if they thought George Bush should be arrested. And now they're the left over there on the other side.
Right,
I asked
the ones
them
that
same,
said lock
I
them.
asked them the same question I asked you. They went crazy. They were bringing cowbells. They're blowing bullhorns.
Because they're insane.
Look at this. Look at this. So do you feel this is good for the left to be presenting themselves this way? Well, yes, but they're protesting too, and they didn't behave that way. I asked them if they thought George Bush should be arrested. That's what triggered this. And it's the second time today that I got this from people presenting themselves as being on the left. So something I often say on my show, which is a left show, this is not good for us. We need to distance the left from these people and explain we're not with them. So, there you have it. There you have it. The MAGA people, you know, and that guy, the blonde guy, he was willing to have a conversation.
He talked to you for a little while,
We talked for a long time, actually. And, you know, he said to me at one point, he was like, well, why don't you go over there? I said, I spent most of my time over there. I just came over here. And nobody over there acted like this. Nobody. And he was like, yeah, but they're saying their stuff. I said, yeah, that's why I'm not one of them. But you can talk to them. They don't behave this way. They don't lose their shit on a question that theoretically should be, if you're supposed to be liberal, you should be able to knock that one right out of the park. That's an easy one. Right?
Of course. Of course. It's not even a gotcha question. It's not even a controversial question.
Right. They lose it because they are so brainwashed by the media that they consume. Like George Bush now is on their side, right? That's how they see him. He dances with Ellen. Michelle gives him a hug, and so he's one of them. So as soon as you say that, it's a challenge to them. Now, this is what I want to point out finally before we really get into this discussion. So we've covered a couple of worker actions over the time that we've done this show. And let's take a look at the crowds there. Let's take a look at the crowds. And,
so this is a compilation of, or I should say a combination, really, because it's of two different events. The railroad worker event outside Grand Central Station, and then the the Whitney Museum.
The Whitney Museum. All right, so first,
Whitney Museum
is going to be the
workers,
Grand
protest.
Central. All right, so let's take a look.
Yep.
Let's take a look. All right, so who do you not see there? Who do you not see there? Do you see any of those fucking people there? Do you see any people who look like those people there? Do you see any people with those kinds of banners there? They're so into justice. They want justice. They're not here for these people. When you see these railroad workers having a demonstration, you don't see any of those fucking people show up to support them.
With the cowbells and the horns.
So
and
maybe you might be saying, well, they seem more artsy. They seem more like artistic people. Do you see them here? This is the Whitney. These are the workers at the Whitney Museum striking for fair wages. Look at the crowd. Do you see any of those motherfuckers? Anyone who looks like they come from that school of thought? Do you see any of them out there to support workers? They don't give a fuck about workers. They are out there to virtue signal. They are completely brain damaged from the media that they consume. They are very deeply emotionally troubled people, and we cannot allow them to hijack the name leftist. They are not leftists. If they were, you'd see them at these things, and I might have half an ounce of respect for them. I might have half an ounce of respect for them if you saw them at things like this, but you never will. You never will. That's not the last video I'm going to do. Now I got blood in my teeth, man. When I go out at these events, now I'm going to ask them, have you ever gone to a strike? Have you ever supported a union? Do you know who Chris Smalls is? Do you know who that is? How do you feel about the Amazon workers? I'm going to start going out and asking these liberals at the kinds of things that attracts them those questions. This is part of our problem as a left movement. We have allowed these people to jump in front of the cameras and represent themselves as us. They are not us. They are not left. They're not even really liberal. They are basically right-wingers who don't hate gay people and are for abortion rights. Other than that, they are fundamentally right-wingers. And in many respects, they're much further to the right than what we call right-wingers. Because one of the most common things that I got from these MAGA people when I asked them, why do you support Donald Trump? Or why do you feel he shouldn't be in jail? Or why do you support him? Have you ever seen him did he start any wars? He didn't start any wars. As soon as Biden got in there, we're in war in Ukraine. So who's on the left? Who's on the right? Definitely not those people. They're not on the left. They're not any left that I recognize. And their behavior is so disgusting. It is so off-putting. You cannot overstate how damaging it is to any left movement to not make it clear in the public mind, these are not the left. We don't know who they are, but they're not with us.
Yeah, no, that's all very well said. And I just want to make one quick point here, and then we will let Tusker in. a lot of people on all sides of the spectrum have talked about how politics has been really dumbed down in recent years, right? About how the introduction of Trump brought all of these sort of right-wing troglodytes out of the woodwork, right? That was part of the rationale for why he won, is that, well, you had all these right-wingers, all of these deplorables in their trailers, right, who never thought to vote anymore because they didn't want to vote for the button-vested, Glenn Youngkin types or the Mitt Romney types, and they were all of a sudden activated by Trump, and that's why he won. I mean, to a certain extent, that is, of course, true. But I think it's 10 times truer on the other side that the rise of Trump dumbed our politics down because it gave a lot of apolitical lib types a certain confidence that they now understood politics because they understood that Donald Trump was bad, right? So people who didn't know what you were referencing when you talked about should we arrest George Bush, a lot of the people had no clue what you were even talking about because they don't know about the Iraq War.
That was clear.
Right,
yeah.
because they have no politics, right? But they know that when Donald Trump says that the Mexicans aren't sending their best, they're bringing drugs and crime and rapists, they know that's bad. And so they now consider themselves political thinkers because they know that's bad. And so now they think of themselves as qualified to opine on politics in general, where as you can expose very, very quickly and very, very easily, they know nothing about politics or history or anything. They just know an asshole when they see one. And because Donald Trump is a fairly obvious asshole, they feel like, okay, now I am qualified to talk on these subjects when they are not.
Well, and I think this attracts a lot of people who are boring and don't have any particularly interesting qualities to recommend them to others. So hatred of Trump is what substitutes for a personality.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Who would hang out with them otherwise?
Right. And they think they're funny because they can, get their digs in on them. Whereas nothing is less funny than the low-hanging fruit of the Trump jokes, right? I mean, it's the most unfunny thing in the world. Trump himself is funny. Like, we watch Trump speeches and laugh. But these sort of like Stephen Colbert type witticisms against Donald Trump, nothing is less funny than that. All right, let's bring in Tusker.
Innocent until proven Trumpy.
Yeah, no, exactly. Right. I mean, just
like if you just look at the people who are holding up that banner, if you look at the people I interviewed at the end, if you did not just constantly swear fealty to some kind of an ideology, how would you get anyone to hang out with you? Because all of these people are so intrinsically repulsive as fucking human beings. They're so lacking in any qualities that would recommend them to another person that they have to get involved in some kind of cult, like all cult members. They have to get involved in some kind of cult to find connection with other people.
Well, now you understand what I've been saying for these last 4 years. I'm not talking to you, Russ. I'm talking about to the audience, those who are stragglers, right? Now you understand what I've been saying when I'm talking about it's Democratic voters are the problem. Yeah, the DNC is an obstacle. The DNC ain't those people, though, right? That's a whole different problem. It's a much bigger problem. Because they can win fair and square when they want to, because that is the power base of the Democratic Party. That type.
The DNC wouldn't take the time to piss on these people. They use them for their votes and for their voices raised up with very little understanding of what they're talking about.
And it works.
Those are their worker bees.
And it works.
Yep.
All right, let's bring in Tusker. Tusker, what's going on?
Hey, masterclass, Russell. I'm glad you've been blooded in the street activism wars.
I learned everything I know from Jose Vega and Kynan Thistlethwaite.
Yeah, and just before anybody asks,
I was just about to.
The T-shirt says, "I don't need therapy. I just need to go to Ukraine."
Oh, okay.
I'm sure. Is that popular around the town you're in, or you just wear it inside?
No one gives a fuck down here.
No one cares. Right, exactly.
No one cares. Like, literally, I see patients. Like, I mean, and those patients.
You wear that to work?
I wear scrubs to work.
Well, that's what I was saying.
No, I mean, it's just like, and we see patients from different social stratas. Literally, no one talks about this. No one talks about it. But every single healthcare worker, when patients aren't around and maybe something kind of somewhat political comes up, every single time something comes out of their mouth, it's, we need that money from Ukraine.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you
Right.
put that in the
Right.
chat earlier.
That's what people are talking about,
Right.
not what these people are doing out there. And
Right.
I'm just, oh God, I was just, mostly I call it because that, like, part of me was just like, I just wanted to like watch it and giggle like in the background, you know, because it was way too much fun. But that first thing, that question when you said, well, so is it white supremacy to critique Candace Owens? And I didn't exactly hear what he said, but did he say?
I listened to it a few times. We dropped the clips. We should probably put some subtitles in here and there. He said Michelle Obama is. He said something to the effect of Michelle Obama is a universally respected figure, and then I'm pretty sure what he said after that is Candace Owens is a pathetic grifter.
In whose universe?
Well, that's it. So I mean that's he just expressed the liberal hypocrisy on race. So what they mean is you can't criticize people who are not white that we like. You know, if you can say whatever you want about anybody, as long as they're not on their team as they see it.
If you claim to stand for black and brown people and you're anti-racist and you're all that other type of stuff, then what is the entire third world doing? What is the global South doing? Do they support our actions in Ukraine?
They don't know anything beyond what MSNBC tells them and what the op-ed page of the New York Times focuses on. Exactly. They don't know anything about the world beyond that.
Exactly. So they are sitting there and claiming to speak for black and brown people, but they mean a particular type of black and brown people. That's it. They're not talking for the millions upon millions of black and brown people all over the world that do not support us and actually side with Russia.
Right. Right. Well, and you know, I mean, the hypocrisy is inherent in George Bush, how many brown people died because of George Bush. And you want to invoke race. And this is why they're always talking about privilege, because it's transference. They're accusing you of what they have. Any of those people look like they were from the rough side of town to you? Oh man, those people for the most part they're doing all right financially.
No, most of
you have to have those politics.
It looks like they have time to tailor their clothes, paint their nails, and get their hair colored.
Right. Exactly. And they had time to go run down there in the middle of a weekday. I have a freak job. So I worked that day and then I went from my job, but that's why I was available in the afternoon. Why were they available in the afternoon?
I mean, look, it was not the thing that I like to just come back to is that the question was not even a hostile question. And he didn't ask it to be hostile. Right. I mean, he just came up. Yeah. That's why the MAGA people didn't take it as being hostile.
Right.
Right.
Like if they had just had a conversation,
you might have had a hint challenge in your voice. Just a hint.
Not until he came at me like that.
No, I would say just because you're speaking loudly, so you know it can be covered and stuff, people might interpret that.
The same with the MAGA people.
Yes, exactly.
But it was a very innocent. And now I think it was a fairly innocent start, which is, do you think he'll be found guilty? Right.
Right.
I mean, that's the first question. So you think he's going to be found guilty?
And then look, if
I
I said, do you think George Bush should be arrested next? He got hostile immediately. What is this? What aboutism? What is this? I'm not going to be baited by you. How is that baiting you if you're supposedly on the left? You know, I didn't ask you. Do you think if I had gone up and said, so don't you think Barack Obama should be in jail for the way he handled the banking crisis? Yeah, that's baiting. People of that politics, that's baiting them. It's not what I said. George Bush, you're supposed to not like him. Like there's a lot more of that video, as Keaton can tell you. Like that woman kept walking, stepping to me and accusing me of being in her space. And this is what they do. They like to, you know, I'm gonna give Robert a shout out. Robert was there. He helped me shoot. He rode the train with me uptown to make sure nobody got to me. But no,
yeah, I was trying to convince
that wasn't why. But he did ride the train with me uptown. Yeah. That's what they go to. That's what she was trying to do. And actually, when you see the extended cut, when I say you're stepping into my space, anyone can see that on the camera. Her attitude changes subtly. Like she was trying to set this up in a way that maybe she could claim I attacked her, I was being aggressive. And with Robert, with the ones towards the end, he was trying to get the lunatic with the bunny ears to quiet down so I could interview this guy. And apparently they accused him of using his size and his maleness to intimidate them. So yeah, they go right to safety. They go right to safety. They like that. They like that language. So yeah, you know, I think this is a preview to, we were on what was it, Convo Couch, Generational Change, where I was talking about how I'm going to go to Colombia and I'm going to ask them about Hillary, and 90% of them are going to be pro, and Jen was skeptical of that.
No, not at all skeptical. No, not at all.
Look at that. I promise you I'll get some of that when I go to Colombia and start, because I'm going to ask the Hillary question, and then I'm going to follow up with some of her crimes as Secretary of State.
Well,
and then I'm going to get that.
Here's my thing. You cannot simultaneously claim that women cannot walk out on the streets at night for fear of men and say that men are privileged because they can overwhelm you. And then it doesn't make sense to say both of those things, you know, because that's what we always do. I mean, just kind of like with some of the physical competitions, MMA fight. Like I've heard people say that even in like male sports, think about boxing. Those are 10 pound weight classes. It's recognized in male sporting.
Right.
Like it doesn't logically make any sense.
Well, now you're getting onto another topic.
I know, but
they just made a ruling today that I would like to know more about. But
yeah, and we don't have to talk about that. But I'm just saying, hypocrisy is embedded inside of every single bit of their politics because they cannot think straight.
Well, this is the thing. They have thrown out the idea. This is why I speak out against it so vehemently. And this is part of why I've been talking about, kind of a return to classical culture, because as crazy as it is, you talk to these conservatives and, they're still subscribing to the basic Age of Enlightenment idea that through debate, you will reveal truth, that there are truths, that there are inviolable, objective, platonic truths to be discovered and arrived at. They've abandoned that. They've gone back to witch doctory. They've gone back to the idea that, and actually, let me not put it that way. It's an insult to witch doctors. They've gone to something that I don't think has really ever existed in humankind, just this complete embrace of the idea that each individual's emotional life is paramount and each person's individual reality is paramount. What could be more narcissistic than that? Even as they claim to reject Western values, they've turned themselves into a caricature of everything that's worse in the West.
It's the end of history. There is no more need for debate.
Right.
That's what happened.
I think I saw something come across on Twitter, and I think Tom just gave us a super chat to that effect. I'll have to look into this more, but where is it? I just saw it. Tom just said, breaking that the judge presiding over Trump's case donated to Biden 2020. I did see something coming over.
Is that a joke or is that true?
No. I actually saw something to that effect on Twitter also, so that could be...
good luck finding a judge in New York who didn't.
Yeah, right. I mean, that could be coming out right now. Let's admit our friend Ellen into the chat here. Ellen, you called in. We got a party going on.
Hey, Gangel here.
Hey, Tusker. Yeah.
Hey, Ellen. We're here with Russell.
So
I'm
to
gonna meet Ellen. Ellen's coming to New York, man. We're gonna hang out.
I am. And holy cow, if there's anything like this going on days that we're there,
That would be
my
funny,
gosh.
man.
I'll
I'll have Ellen
be
lay
with
down
you,
the
Russ.
fire and brimstone on him.
Get the preacher lady out there on the masses. Oh my goodness, that'd be great.
Well, that's what I'm calling in about to everything y'all have said. And I hope this comment will make sense and seem on point to y'all and the listeners. It does to me. So I have just come from a Maundy Thursday service. Now, y'all have just celebrated Passover, right? And if you had gone to the
ongoing. People who
ongoing,
do that.
yeah.
Did you do that, Keith?
So
do you do
would
that?
expect what?
Did you do that?
What?
Did you do that?
My family's having a Seder, not my immediate family, but
I'm asking him if he did the thing.
Not yet.
Oh,
My cousin is putting it on at his house. I'm not going, but
awesome.
He's having a virtual component, so I'll probably check in before the show. I think it's on Sunday. He's doing it on Easter.
So
anyway,
if you had the rabbi, if you were there with the rabbi, you would expect the rabbi to have something to say. So if you don't know what Maundy Thursday is is the day it sort of begins Easter season per se. Maundy Thursday is the day that celebrates the last time disciples, or he walks to the cross to be crucified.
Right.
All about empire. So my church is a gay church, a wonderful church. We have the world's most wonderful preacher. But tonight we had a guest preacher. What did he preach on? Feet. Jesus's feet as he walked to the cross. Pilate's feet as he wandered around the palace. The washing of the feet. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I drive through the dark 45 minutes to an hour to get to my house. And to Tusker's point, the whole time I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't even look in the back of my car to see if somebody crawled in while I was there. You know, that fear of driving these long, lonely highways. And then I tune into the show and I see those, the rainbow banner and Russell asking such a low-key question, and they got nothing to say. They got nothing to say. It's like preaching about feet on Maundy Thursday. You know, this is a UCC church, United Church of Christ, the liberal church, the progressive church.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ellen, I'm actually curious because whenever you said, I thought it was actually going to be kind of like a spiritual speech or could actually have some meaning. Because what I was thinking is about compare the feet of Jesus who walked among the people, torn by dirt, dirty, all that other kind of stuff, to the feet of Pilate walking through a palace, you know, totally clean. I could see some type of speech like that being made. So
I mean, it was almost like, I mean, and to your point, Russell, it's like we've got so many progressives, liberals, whatever, who basically couldn't find a place to be. So they join a cult, or they decide to be a preacher who's got nothing to say.
I mean, this is, well, this is, you know, this is like a broad philosophical, this is a broad philosophical question. Like, is there just such an impulse in humans to join some kind of a religion, to be part of something that has that kind of ideological and dogmatic structure, that as people have lost faith in the church, they had to create a new one? Because this has all the characteristics, not only of a religion, but of a fanatical religion, a religion that does not court debate, disagreement, or dissent. You know, I don't want to get too into this, but
no, I mean, Yes, yes.
They-
and I've
they-
seen that as an activist, as an immigrant activist. You have so many, and they would all be Democrats. They would all, the whole 9 yards, who are so
Keaton?
much more interested in being part of a movement
Right.
than they are in understanding the issues. The push for comprehensive
Right,
immigration
right,
reform.
right.
It's like somebody read the dadgum package. But
Keaton,
I'm sorry.
Did you have a question?
No, I was just going to say, Keaton, do you want to weigh in? Yeah, you've been quiet for a bit.
Oh, no, that's okay. Actually, Richie Rosencrantz, who's in the chat here, who was the original host of this show, was just messaging me how he can call in. So I'm going to send him the chat because he was the original host of the show, actually, way back when we first started, before Russell started.
This turned into a party.
So it's turning into a party here. He's on right
Well,
now.
I
So
can exit.
no, it's okay. Don't worry. We're all hanging out here. The show's over. We got all our segments done. This is the talk back portion.
All right, man. I'm just.
I'm gonna go get my cowbell in case anyone gets out of the damn line.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
More
Here he is.
cowbell. More
Here's
cowbell.
Richie, what's up, man?
All
Good
right,
to
hang
see
on,
you
man.
again.
I've had this sound drop in here forever, and this is the perfect time to use it. These were my thoughts about the people that I encountered.
Whining fucking maggots.
I've been waiting to use that for a long time.
Finally got it in. Richie Rosencrantz, 4 years ago, we started this as an audio podcast together. So good to see you again, man.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Wi-Fi's good up there in the Berkshires, right? Is that you're in Holyoke, Massachusetts now, correct?
Yes.
I won't be too far from you. I'm moving to the Albany area pretty soon.
Oh,
I'll be
cool.
about an
Yeah.
hour away, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, we can just we'll crawl through the Berkshires to see each other.
We'll crawl through the woods together. So what's up? What's on your mind? You wanted to call in?
It'll be like Hannibal. And
Oh well, I just wanted to join the party because you all seem like you're having a good time.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I kept making points in the chat or just responding to things that people were saying. I donated some money too because I felt obligated.
Well, no, you're not
Well,
obligated.
I mean, we try to put out
I
that
feel like
obligation
you guys
vibe.
deserve the support, and especially after Russell went down and had to deal with that bullshit.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, Russell really, he enjoyed it. He was really looking forward to it. I saw you put a super chat. I thought did you put one or two in there? Because I thought you put a message on one of them.
I put out a couple of them, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that chat goes so quickly. Everybody's so fast on it that when you throw something in there, less than a couple seconds later, it's irrelevant.
Yeah, it just makes its way up.
Yeah,
Makes its way
the
up.
first one was the Piscopo Keaton flick.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
It was
yes.
a gangster film.
Yeah. No, Michael Keaton. Yeah.
I don't think Mary Lou Henner.
I mean, I might have seen
Peter
it.
Boyd.
I might have seen that back in the day.
You did. Everybody saw that movie back in the day.
I probably did.
It was a
back
good
then.
film.
Yeah.
It was a good campy romp on like what 40s gangster films and stuff. Like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, it occurred to me what you were talking about is like, how people talk about social Darwinism. I think what you encountered today was like social Newtonianism. It was like the third law, right? You have this
thermodynamics.
No, the third law of, I think it's the third. Yeah, the third law of every object has an equal opposite reaction, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. Every action has
Right. So you have this rise of MAGA on the right, and then you get this like blue MAGA, anti-MAGA on the. I wouldn't.
Well,
call
no,
it
yeah,
left.
no, that's a good point.
That's also the theory of Batman.
Like a yin yang.
Well, yeah. Well, that's exactly the point.
Once you have Batman, a Joker is going to emerge.
Well, that's kind of in line with the point that I made, which is that Trump activated people who were previously sort of apolitical on the conservative side to come out and vote for Trump. But he also activated another class of morons on the left who were apolitical until they identified Trump as this unique evil. And now they've risen up and they think that they are actual political thinkers now, which they are not.
Right. No, I've encountered them too. They don't know what they're talking about.
The opposition to Bush was based on something. because there was a war going on.
Right.
There were things
No,
happening.
It's virtue signaling.
Of course.
Well, and also when they talked about the threat he represented to the Constitution and to democracy, it was based on something real. It wasn't Russiagate. It was really relevant. Like this, it was the Bush White House that first really started threatening the press that way, and saying, you have to be careful what you write. This whole idea of truthiness. I mean, we're going to stick with the religious theme. George Bush was Donald Trump's John the Baptist, man. Like he ushered in a lot.
What does that make Nixon? Because didn't he have a problem with that?
Nixon was one of the prophets. Yeah. No. I mean, actually, if you do go back and you look at Nixon, he did create. He was like a bridge to the modern Republican Party.
Yeah, but you don't. But
he was it was the bridge between Eisenhower and Reagan.
Yeah, God forbid you told those people about what Obama did with the Patriot Act, ramping that up to the point where guys like Chris Hedges are suing.
I mean, look, my point was really, and it worked beyond my wildest dreams. But my theory, I went in with the theory that if you ask that question, that was my plan. It was my theory. If you ask that question neutrally, should George Bush be arrested?
Yeah.
The liberals would not be able to answer it. And the conservatives would either say no and discuss it, or they would say yes, actually. And that's exactly what happened. That is what I expected. I will say the level of batshit that they displayed, the level of emotional diarrhea they were willing to spray in every direction, so to speak, was beyond what I could have imagined, but it didn't surprise me.
Well, but that's the thing. When you were talking about it on the show last week, that you were going to go and do this, you were going to go and ask them. What you said was, I guarantee there are going to be a lot of the libs who say, oh, no, I don't think we should arrest George Bush. He was a reasonable Republican who I can have a disagreement with. You expected them to give some sort of Weasley non-answer, but you didn't expect them to fly off the handle, start bringing a cowbell in your face and, the megaphone and all that shit. No, you did not expect that, so you got a lot more.
They even got conspiracy theorists on you. A little bit,
right? What, from the libs?
Yeah, the first guy, he was like, "What are you?" They thought you were some kind of trickster.
I'm not even going to call that conspiracy. That's their go-to. That's their go-to. As soon as I said Michelle Obama, oh, you're a white supremacist. I think he said you must have a lot of white supremacists in your audience. I think he said that.
Oh, well, he should tune in.
Virtuoso, you're on, by the way. Virtuoso's calling in.
Oh,
what's up, Virtuoso?
Hey, how you doing, Kynan? How you guys doing?
Good.
What's up, man?
Hey, Tusker. Ellen, nice to meet you. It's the first time talking to you.
Oh, nice to meet you too, Virtuoso. Also, Richie.
Same.
What's up?
What's up, man?
No, I just saw the video, and I gotta say, Russell, you did a fantastic job covering both sides.
Thank you, man.
I gotta say, Roseanne, that you talked to, the MAGA Roseanne, I think she was very polite. I don't know her name, sorry, but she was very polite. While the other side was just very, very rude to you.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and I wanted to show that I told her I was a Bernie person.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I included that.
Right. She didn't throw anything at you.
No, she was like, she took it with like a sense of humor. She was like, you're still on that. All right. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
She was like, what? It didn't perturb. And look, I don't want to paint a picture. Like, I did hear a MAGA guy, and I got that on video, and I'll drop that. There was a MAGA guy saying to like an Asian woman who was there, who I actually felt bad for. It seemed like she was advocating like her husband was locked up in China or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes to, and she was wearing a mask. And he was like, yeah, this guy got a lot of press, actually. I saw him on the TV a lot. He was wearing like dark sunglasses. He had a red shirt. If you watch news coverage, you'll probably see this guy. He was like, yeah, I like rice rolls. why don't you take off your mask so I know you're not a communist? So, like, I'm not trying to paint a picture that it was Switzerland on the MAGA side or anything.
No, sure, yeah. I know.
No, yeah. I understand. They're two polar extremes,
Right.
Sorry.
But look, that was I will say this: that was the exception, not the rule. Like that guy was a fucking asshole. I didn't hear a lot of things.
Yeah,
like that.
you know what would be funny?
In
though?
fact, this
Sorry.
being New
Go
York,
ahead.
because New York is so diverse.
Yeah.
God, man, at least a third of the people on the MAGA side actually were not white.
That's why when I heard, I'm sorry to interrupt, but when I saw Jamal Bowman selling wolf tickets, like, oh, we don't want hate here. I'm like, well, why don't you start with the police officers, Jamal?
Yeah.
They're pretty much infiltrated in our city. Why don't you start with some construction workers, that actually build the city? I don't know, man. It's like, to me, it's just posturing, and it's like, this is just cultural. Right? Yeah, and to me, it's just cultural tribalism. I remember these two camps, like 12 years ago, used to be in Zuccotti Park. Now look at them.
Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah, the guy you spoke to.
A point.
The gay man you spoke to in the beginning of the video, that guy fought for gay rights against George Bush. I bet he was there in the fucking the convention in 2004. And now look at him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mission
it's like
accomplished.
Low-hanging. It's like, yeah, right. Mission accomplished on those guys. It's like the low-hanging fruit or something. You made a really good juxtaposition or whatever you call it when you went downtown or went to the Whitney. I don't know where the Whitney is. It's you consider that downtown?
Chelsea. Yeah, it's under the High Line.
Yeah, okay. And all those people, like working class people struggling, were there. Like getting their act together because people are trying to ruin their fucking lives.
Right.
And yeah, I was like looking for their support crowd, looking for the solidarity. Yep. I'm 3 hours away. I couldn't be there, but
you know who they had solidarity from? Because I talked to them. That's I just wanted to show the crowds for this.
Thank you.
We did a more cut video of it at the time.
And you were actually on for that show, Rich. You actually called in for that one. You did the Whitney thing with us. Yes.
Right. Yeah. I just want to be that person.
They got support from other museum workers. Not all the people there worked at the Whitney. We had people coming in from all the other museums to support them. But you don't see those people. And when you confront...
No, they don't go to those kind of events.
No, they don't give a fuck. And if you confront them about things like that, they'll say we can walk and chew gum at the same time. And I say, yeah, but you don't. You don't.
Right. You don't. Right.
You could, but you don't.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Show me the last thing you posted on your the Twitter feed you're
they're
fucking
probably
obsessed with about a strike. Show me. I want to see.
They may think along the lines of like I'm going to drop an economist name, Keynes.
Yeah.
He calls
John Maynard.
There's a reference in one of his books. This is totally obscure. He's talking about a cemetery guy who's like raking the leaves, and he uses the word menial, and I'm like, you fucking prick. That guy's job is 100 times more important than yours.
Yes. I mean, you got to forgive him for the time that he was.
I know, but he was kind of a dick.
He was a huge asshole. If you look into the history of him, he is a terrible human being. Just by the way. But what I would consider
you know what would be funny here? I wanted to say this a minute ago, and it slipped. It would be funny to overdub all those fucked up antagonistic liberals with like fake Trump-esque or pro-Trump overdubs, and then be like, and then show that to people, and then be like, sorry, faked you out. These are actually fucking asshole liberals.
Yeah.
And then like show the real version. Like,
well, we could definitely get some sound
or something like that. I just think it'd be funny. Like when.
I mean, look, there's a lot of stuff that y'all see over the next week or so as we drop full clips. There was a lot of interesting stuff. There was at first I thought she was Cuban, but now I went back and listened to the footage. There was a black, I think that accent was French. So North Africa or Haiti or something.
Oh, okay.
And she was a MAGA person, man. She was all decked out and she was on the mic and she you know, you have certain members of immigrant communities see the Republicans more as representing the American dream as they saw it, opportunity and hard work. And it seemed like she was coming from that camp.
And like, as with a lot of Mexicans and Central Americans, they see Republicans as being more family oriented and less like the people you were just talking to, just sort of weird and
and they're also less they're less offended by the idea of an obnoxious, lawless, strongman leader, because in much of these parts of the world, that's the norm, right? Central, South America, the leader is the strong man. He gets to eat what he wants, fuck who he wants, do whatever he wants. He can't go to jail. He's the leader, right? He's the man. He's the man. He's a strong alpha male who crushes his opposition. That's kind of what Trump represents. They don't get triggered by that the way that a lot of institutionalist upper middle class libs do, because they are invested in America as this project where anybody can be the president someday, perhaps even them or their daughter who goes to the lovely school. So Trump is such an offense to them because he represents a breach of norms that they are very, very much sort of invested in maintaining. Whereas a lot of immigrant groups are not as invested in that. A lot of people from other parts of the world are not as invested in that. They don't have this rose-tinted view of what this country represents the way a lot of these institutionalists
Trump offends their idea.
Exactly.
Their idealist view of what government, democracy, and all that other type of stuff is. While meanwhile, the working class is just dealing in reality.
Exactly. Well, that's the
Trump
point. That's the point. Yes.
Trump is so déclassé, as was his wife. You know, he's just
right.
I mean, look, the tie, the toilet paper on the bottom of the shoe.
Well,
the
this is
former model wife. It's just terribly déclassé.
Well, this is what I always say about Trump, and this is really core to his popularity amongst people that he's popular with. It's a Rodney Dangerfield snobs versus slobs movie. And nobody roots for the snobs in that movie. Right. He's that guy. White House. Hey, what's for lunch?
Right.
They're watching that movie, and because they hate these elites so much.
Right.
That was what they sent Trump there for. And these elites are so out of touch with the population. They never understood when Trump drove them crazy. For Trump voters, that was mission accomplished. That's what he was there for.
Yeah.
You wanted to bring down Trump. You know what you should have done? Embraced him. Talked about how much you liked him.
Or just normalized him, right? Treat him as a politician and take on the substance of his views and trust that you can beat them, right?
So a guy I know said something like that. He watched Trump's popularity numbers and they dipped when there was like a 2-month period. I forget if it was 2017 or 2018 where it was like April, May. It might have been when after COVID hit, I'm not sure. But people stopped paying as much attention to him and his numbers dropped. And it was the only time, I think, that his popularity had a measurable decline.
Yeah.
But as soon as everybody was like, oh my God, Trump said this, boom.
Right.
I just wanted to tell you guys, so like this, a lot of my coworkers were mad because one of the doctors said something just so out of touch, just absolutely out of touch. So, you know, they'll get stuck late and the doctor doesn't care. He doesn't care how many cases he puts on. He doesn't care, whatever it is. And so these people have been dealing with this. They're short staffed. They're basically on call 50% of the time that they work, you know, that's a lot whenever you're stuck 6 hours every night after your shift ends. Okay. They're sick of it. They are angry as hell. And so in order to help alleviate some of that late, we have someone cross training in that area. And the guy, he's not as fast. He's learning. And the doctor is sitting in the control room and he tells one of the other techs, he goes, oh, God, I just wish I could work with happy and competent people.
Ooh.
And it's like, and so my manager, my middle manager, he comes in, he's like, how's everyone doing? Everyone's been fucking mad. They've been angry about this for hours. And, you know, I said, do you want to know what that doctor said? I said he wanted to work with happy and competent people. And he went, well, I mean, everyone wants to work. And I said, you don't understand what he just said. He just told us, when the slaves are working, I want them to be singing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the second that we're working and singing, he goes, no, not that song. I want a different song.
Preach.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That is what that is how out of touch these people are. They do not understand what people are dealing with and what they're facing. And that's the reason why there has been a transition. The working class is more in the Republican Party at the moment, for whatever reasons. The working class is actually willing to have conversations with each other. That's the reason why you see on that side.
Sure. Well, and
we have to deal with each other. There's no other way that we can survive unless we do.
Well, and this is why that woman that I talked to, look, as a native New Yorker, that woman is a very familiar type to me. You'll see in the extended conversation, like she was a Democrat all her life. She's one of those people. She basically very much like what happened in my neighborhood. I always talk about that I saw how a working class that was solidly Democrat became Republican. That's why I feel so strongly about it. I saw it up close. When I was a kid, you could not find a Republican in my neighborhood with a search party, man. Now, they mostly voted for Trump. Most of these people voted for Trump, and she was one of them. She voted for Reagan. She was one of those Reagan Democrats. And then they came back to Clinton. Most of them came back for Clinton. And then after that, that was it, man. They just never came back after that. They went full Fox News. And a big part of that was that the Democrats abandoned them economically and expressed nothing but contempt for them culturally. At that point, why would you think that they're going to support you? Look, New York's run by Democrats. I mentioned this on the show a couple of weeks ago. You know, my best friend passed away about 5 years ago. He worked in the unions in the city. And I saw him get more and more angry and more frustrated as the years went on because they fucked all the union workers. They fired them all. And then they offered to hire them back to the same job as non-union workers. And he had to eat that in the final years of his life. You know, I mean, that's a Democrat-run city, right? We're Democrats. It's a blue city. It's a blue city. We don't do that, right? That's like Virginia under the Democrats had the worst labor laws in the country.
Yeah.
So so these people, they come and say, well, why do these people vote against their own interest? Are they? Right. What the fuck are you doing for them? All you do is call them deplorables. How do you think they're going to vote when on top of it, you're not even putting money in their pocket?
Keaton, I mean, Russell, this is whataboutism. I don't.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? You know, because I've heard that, and there's this commentator, a social commentator by the name of Vijay Prasad, and he once said that
he's great, actually.
You should have him on the show.
Yeah, we should actually. You know, I forgot all about him. I haven't thought of that guy in probably a year or two, but he's great.
You and Russell would probably hit it off about India.
Yeah.
But he said that whataboutism was like a term used by British Parliament to like not talk about the plight of the Irish, you know, in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
And so they kind of use that term
article about this about a year when the war started, when the Russia-Ukraine war started. I finally put my thoughts to words, and I wrote it out on our Substack. It is a made up word that now is employed by liberals to wiggle out of being called out for their shit. Like, it is literally a word created to excuse their own hypocritical nonsense when they get called on it, right? Because I made this point from the day one of the war, right? So you say, well, if you want Putin to be held responsible for the invasion of Ukraine, right, if we're supposed to wipe him off the map, then what happens to us for having invaded Iraq? And they say, well, that's whataboutism. I said, well, that's just a convenient way to dodge the moral implications of what I'm saying. What I'm asking you is not a philosophical question. It's actually a very practical, real-world question. Whereas a world in which Putin is crushed for invading Ukraine must, if you are to be morally or intellectually consistent at all, must also be a world in which we are crushed for the various war crimes that we have perpetrated over the past several decades. And so what world are you advocating for? If you're advocating for a world in which Russia, as it exists now, no longer exists, then you're also advocating for a world in which we no longer exist. And most of you idiots aren't prepared to live in that world because you wouldn't fare very well in that world if you'd even be alive in the first place. So it's not a thought experiment. It's actually a very practical and important question to ask about the reality you want to inhabit. And how do they get out of that? Well, there's whataboutism.
That was,
I mean?
it has
It's
a
just
longer
cop-out.
history.
It's
It has
just
a longer
cop-out.
history. Whataboutism.
Well, no, I'm not saying it doesn't
arose-
have a longer history, but
Right,
what I'm
but
saying
I'm
is
saying
that's
what
how
about-
it's used right now.
It's used the same way. Whataboutism has its root in the civil rights movement. When Black people were fighting for their rights, they took to the Soviet Union the document "We Charge Genocide" and put it up for a vote on the UN. And what did the entire United States government say? Whataboutism. That's where it come from. That is what it is used for. It is
Interesting.
always used for deflection. Always, every single time. It is not a new thing. It's a liberal, a conservative, right, left, Democrat, Republican. That's their defense since day one, to defend empire. That is what whataboutism is.
Well, I think what a lot of these people are not seeing right now, and that's what I was saying before. Look, between the de-dollarization, which seems to be accelerating every day, which is something that we on this show warned about from the day the Ukraine war broke out. We have been talking about how you are pushing the rest of the world to figure out an alternative economic system because they don't want to be where Russia was. We broke that trust. I use this geeky metaphor on Savvy's show. I know our audience will appreciate it. We were the Iron Bank, right? In Game of Thrones, we were the Iron Bank. Nobody fucked with the Iron Bank because it was understood the Iron Bank is neutral and it's necessary for the functioning of the economy of Westeros. So you don't fuck with the Iron Bank. Now, if the Iron Bank were to pick a side and use its leverage economically to hurt the opponent, now everyone would lose faith in the Iron Bank and start saying, well, we have to figure out an alternative economic system, right? That's what we did by sanctioning Russia in that way, by using their dollar reserves in that way. We made everybody say, we better not have dollar reserves, man. Like, if we disagree with these crazy motherfuckers, which is an increasingly strong possibility, given that their cheese is clearly slid off their cracker, well, what are they gonna do to us? Right?
Exactly,
We need
Russell.
to
It's that
de-dollarize.
it's this country. It basically uses unilateral
Our
leverage.
allies, everybody, India is getting on
yeah.
it. Like, everyone's trying to get rid of
This country basically, uses unilateral capital, basically to basically weaponize their currency
Yep.
to stack their local economies.
Right. So what they think was going to happen? Look how fast this is happening. Brazil and China just made this deal. Saudi Arabia and China, now they're going off the petrodollar, the thing that we actually whacked Muammar Gaddafi over. And now that's actually happening.
Isn't
They
that
had
the real reason?
healthcare.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Isn't that the real
AMLO
reason?
right next door, saying that we're an independent country.
Yep. Fucking Biden goes over there, fist bumps Saudi Arabia. And what
Bro, it's like the end of.
Come and get your fucking shine box.
Well, I wouldn't go Goodfellas, but it's like the end of Casino.
That's it, man. Now they just told OPEC to cut production. They're cutting production. So that's our ally over there. So look, all the chickens are coming home to roost now. Malcolm said it 60 years too early. But they're all coming home to roost now. Ukraine was the dumbest thing we could have done. The way we went about it was a supreme act of hubris. And these PMCs with their little Ukraine pins now are in for a very rude awakening in a de-dollarized world because they have no skills. They have no skills in a world that no longer requires them because not only has the dollar collapsed, but ChatGPT can do most of their jobs.
and their individualistic attitudes and how they only consider themselves and the things that they care about, that is going to put them in for a rude awakening whenever that happens. They are going to become some of the most ruthless people that you will ever meet.
Well, they're not going to
undercut everything.
survive in that world. They're gonna. Not that I'm wishing this on anybody. AI algorithm.
I just want to take this.
They're going to off themselves, man. They're not going to know how to survive. This is something I try to avoid the, poor people are inherently good. I've known a lot of sick motherfuckers who are poor, so I'm not going to say that. But I will say, from having traveled around and having had a lot of life experience, poor people tend to have more tribalistic values. They tend to be better about sharing because they grow up in an environment where that's necessary to your survival.
Yeah,
you have to share. You got to get the person this week because you might need that help next week. Yeah. So I find that poorer people are much more willing to go out of their way for you. They're much more ethical in those ways. I was
making that point the other day on a post I should have just stayed away from, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, man. I hitchhiked cross country a few times when in my younger days.
I forget what it was about now. It was about somebody wanted to start arming people to defend against other arming other people, and I was like, well, listen, I'm not necessarily against gun ownership, and that's a complicated issue, but what's going on in that particular situation just seemed fishy to me. That was all.
Yeah, well, that's the FBI
right
there.
Well, it was I forget. It might have been the Ecuador thing, and there were people who were like coming on and basically saying they were kind of, without actually coming out and directly saying it, they were basically like, it's all the poor people's fault. We should arm the other people to kill all those people. Like it's the fucking impoverished Ecuadorian. It's their fault. It's their fault they're committing crime. There's no such thing as social determinants. We have to arm the people who they might want to harm so that they can all get killed. And then Ecuador will go back to being normal. And it's like, I'm listening to these people and I'm like, I gotta say something. I shouldn't have, because then it just, blah, 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 blah. But I made the point that Russell made, and it didn't really go over very well for people who
got the proverbial cowbell.
Yeah, right. The cowbell. We should get a cowbell.
Who's going to make all the money?
I should have a cowbell, and you should have your singing bowl.
My ultimate point was, who's going to make all the money on that one? It isn't like Ecuador is going to launch an arms creating industry where they're going to employ all these people to make their own guns. They're going to buy them from the fucking United States or some other country.
Well, that's one of the last of our manufacturing industries. It's a big part of what supports the war industry.
Like, these people didn't get it. They were like, no way. I'm like, okay, go in 6 months, go see where all those guns end up being made from, being imported from.
The last thing we need is hyperinflation in a country full of guns.
Yeah.
I feel so bad for Keaton because he was so proud of his professionalism.
I know. This wound up being one of the longest shows we ever did.
Good. Well,
that's fine. We had everything done. Like once the show's over, we can hang out. Like that doesn't matter.
Yeah,
if we had 2 more segments to do now, it would be a problem. But it's not. We don't have anything else.
I appreciate that you wanted to and did hit your marks. One of the comments I didn't do a super thing where you guys could see it, but earlier in the show, probably at the top of it, the news came over the wire that the second dude was expelled from the Tennessee.
Oh yeah.
They got so both the black gentlemen got enough votes to be expelled, and the lady she didn't get expelled. She missed the hatchet by I think 1 vote.
There were a lot of things. There were a lot of stories that were like breaking over the last day. There's a lot of stuff that we could have gotten to.
We wanted to
cover.
Even the thing tucked.
The Wisconsin thing's important though. I'm glad.
Tusker.
Be very careful.
Even the Tucker clip that Tusker sent me Tongue twister. I'd like to do that. We'll probably do that on Sunday. But we got to take some super chats.
What is that, the de-dollarization one?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We got to take some super chats
it's a great segment.
and turn off the lights here in a few minutes.
Yeah. Well,
so let me
who think that that's not going to happen. That Saudi Arabia is not going to start.
No, it's of course. Well, we talked about that with Sabby on the show, on her show. Like the idea that this is just not a real threat, that's just wishful thinking. A lot of the world's been planning this for a long time.
They've been waiting for their chance.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll still take
we
time.
gave it to them.
It'll still take time. The sterling was still okay for this is not going to be a crisis. I don't know.
World moves a lot faster today than it did then.
That is true, but it is true. But I think we still have a little bit of time to kind of prepare some people because
can I ask this, the question I'm about to ask might be irrelevant to this topic, but it might is it at all connected to the digitization that countries are going to digital currency? Would that have any influence on it? That's still that nation's currency, right? If it
I think it has.
Dollar moves to a digital dollar versus a paper dollar.
No, I think it has more to do with the fact that we have maintained our dominant position here through a use of force and a threat of force,
right?
Through might. And once we're seen as not having any might anymore, there's nothing else legitimizing us as the dominant world power, which means there's nothing else legitimizing, or there's no reason why the dollar should be the reserve currency at that point.
Right.
Why? If no one's afraid of us,
especially,
then why would the dollar have any power anymore?
Right.
Well, especially if you don't have confidence in the stability of the country and the government. The whole idea was that the dollar was a sure bet.
Right.
That's why it was the reserve currency. Does this look like a stable country to the rest of the world? You know, they can see the writing on the wall.
And
it's a military junta.
It's compounded with the rise of China.
I don't know.
That now all of a sudden we are facing a peer competitor, and while we have spent ever since the end of World War II bombing, invading, and destroying everyone all over the world, and then once China got a little bit of wealth, they built some ports, some roads, some railroads, all that other type of stuff. And so you have the rest of the world saying, build, don't bomb. That's it.
Right. Yeah, they're making better deals with everybody else.
Well, yeah, they actually have a vision of what their country should look like and what the world should look like, at least in their sphere of it. We really don't. I mean, we talked about this with Sabby quite a bit, but like we don't have a vision for what our empire has to offer anymore. Right. So even, all the blood that we've spilled, right, all of the conquests, all the bombings, all of the just a horrible carnage that we have wrought around the world, what has it really been for? We haven't really won any of these conflicts, right? Nope. We haven't actually influenced the world that much. We've just created chaos for chaos's sake because it enriches certain people and certain interests here at home. There is no ideological project of ours anymore. There is no real mission of ours anymore. It's all just very nihilistic.
Well, was there ever? I mean, the fact that we beat the Nazis is bullshit too. The Russians did.
No, but during the Cold War, at least there was a sort of ideological vision that sort of undergirded our imperial program, right? You don't have to think it was a good one, and you don't have to think we were like particularly good at it. But during the Cold War, there was an ideological conflict playing out on the world stage, and we represented very firmly one side of that.
Right.
And so we had a reason to expand, a reason to influence the world. Since the fall of the USSR, we have not had that. We have not had that. We've kept up our empire. We've kept our military going, but it's only been to indulge the bloodlust and the greed of a select few people and corporations and interests here in this country. It has not been to pursue any broader or transcendent ideological mission. It hasn't.
Yeah, you know what?
China now is brokering peace deals. Like China is actually taking an interest in the world around it, and so of course they're going to emerge as more legitimate because they're more engaged.
No, because I really want Russell to comment on this. I'm really interested in it before you talk, because I think that we are mirroring exactly what identity politics is. It is the focus on the self. It is the focus on your interests above all else. Everything else is just absolutely destroyed in the wake of me, in the wake of we are on top, we are the most important, we need to maintain dominance, we need to have a say, we, me. And that's
my identity.
Well,
That's
I don't
being
know if
imposed.
anybody else will get this reference, but I know Virtuoso will, since I've seen your Facebook profile picture, and I know you're a Yankee fan, if not a diehard, or you're at least a casual Yankee fan. I compare it to when the Yankees got rid of Tino Martinez and they signed Jason Giambi to play first base. That represented their sort of abandoning of this sort of like team strategy where you had these scrappy players like Scott Brocious and Wade Boggs and Charlie Hayes and Paul O'Neill, Bernie Williams, right? Like none of those guys are Hall of Famers, but they all did their part because the team was on a mission and the team won whatever 4 World Series in 5 years. Then they trashed that and they started spending big money on these big superstars, and it was just this like bawdy
Hideki Matsui.
Hideki
Although it paid off.
Matsui, Jason Giambi, A-Rod came in after that, right? Mark Teixeira, right? They just huge checks to all these real like Wheaties box superstar players, and they've won 1 World Series in the last 20 years since they did that, right? Yeah. And that's this country. This country is just like we overindulged on our own decadence to the point where we just became this big fat thing that costs a lot and spends a lot and eats a lot and fucks a lot, but we don't win anything anymore. This is what Trump says. We don't win anymore. He's right. We don't win.
We just consume. We don't create.
Yes, exactly.
Right, we never won.
All right. So I'm gonna
we didn't win, but we represented a pursuit, and we did crush. I mean, not that we crushed the Soviet Union on our own, but capitalism did win that struggle.
It absolutely
did win that struggle.
All right, so
I don't think that was a good thing, obviously, but that did happen. That did happen. And during that period, what I'm saying is we had a reason to pursue our vision of the world, and our military project was the means by which we did that, or at least attempted to do that. So there was something driving it.
The end of history was the end of pursuit.
Right, exactly.
There was this weird period at the end of the Cold War where Americans were in this very strange position of almost malaise because we weren't sure who we were without the Russians. So if you want to see a movie that really captures the mood of that moment, David Byrne's True Stories. It really captures this moment in America where the feeling was, isn't all of this kind of weird? Like we have all this plenty and prosperity and, we're technologically advancing and we're moving into this computer age. But we're still kind of like have these big fat guys like John Goodman walking around with cowboy boots and playing guitar, and wow, what a weird
Russell, when you're saying
is.
this, I'm trying to whistle the opening mentally to Winds of Change.
Yeah.
I heard somebody whistling. I was like, who the hell?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay, it's you. Okay.
So it's this. Now I went back and I watched it a few years ago, and you watch that now and you say, God, what we would give to have those problems. God, what we would give to have those problems. Like that movie is really a commentary on being a giant with incredible power, economic resources, and luxury, and no idea what to do with it. That's how that plays now when you go back. And actually, that's what it was about then.
Yeah.
There's this very magic realism feel to it. That's just kind of like, the fuck are we doing, man? What's with this weird fashion show in a mall? Like, what's happening here? Right.
That's
without having the Russians in opposition, without having anyone in opposition, we didn't know who we were.
Is that what we're trying to do now? Is make China that so we can get that fake thing back?
I mean, we kind of did that after 9/11. Like the Arabs became the new Russians.
Yeah, but that didn't work out.
Yeah.
Well, it did. I don't think
the
sequel is never as good.
Well, I think that was the attempt. but that
Yeah,
was
but
it was such a huge letdown because the only people that we were kicking the ass of were a bunch of goat herders out in the desert.
Exactly.
It wasn't good.
It wasn't an ideological battle against another system of social organization.
It didn't make us
like
it
we
didn't
weren't.
make
We
us
never
feel-
really felt like we had to prove that our way of life is better.
Right, and I would
because after communism, it became terrorism, and terrorism became very abstract.
Right, that's exactly.
Right.
We never had to prove.
And you couldn't pin it.
We never had to tell people, no, you don't want to go live in the desert and be a suicide bomber. It's much better in capital. We never had to make that case, right?
Right.
Whereas with the Soviets, you did have to make that case.
Yeah,
we didn't like how it made us feel.
Right, and now there's people.
The reason
all
why it
over
wasn't important.
all over social media going, would you go live in China if you don't like it here? That's been the thing now for. If you don't like it, go see how the Chinese will treat you. And then,
in China, where a few people have a bunch of money and everybody else suffers. Try living in a world like that. Try imagining that, right?
My simple answer to that is like, how dare you tell me to abandon my own country?
Well,
why are you making me? Why are you like? Don't tell me to go over there. This is my country. I'm going to change this one.
Yeah, the issue with that.
Well,
the other issue with that is every time they launch a critique of China, you can make a case for that happening here.
It's a more dramatic example of what we have here.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
I wonder if
it's a system of exploitation that enriches a few people and immiserates most people. That's what we have here.
Yeah,
now, I'm not saying
That's it. Now you lit up the comment section. All the people all the people working for the CCP are going to pour in there. You guys really don't understand China. You've swallowed all the propaganda.
No, I'm just saying. Well, no,
China.
but what I'm saying is not. I mean, what I'm saying is probably softer on China than you would be. I think it's an exaggerated example of what we have.
Uyghurs live in Swiss lodges.
Dynamic. It's the same basic dynamic. I mean, it more or less is, right? I mean, in terms of economics, in terms of dollars and cents, it's not that much different. Like I said, it's a more dramatic example, but the basic premise is the same, right?
But they have railroads that work,
and they have railroads that work.
Do have that.
Yeah, and
exactly.
I mean, you can't beat them on their infrastructure. So at least you don't have.
Sorry, I screwed you up, Russell.
I'm just going to answer that. Yes, but the Cold War was more or less over. Like by then, we were already looking ahead.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, it was made in 1986, but it captures that period up until really
the ennui.
2001, like that feeling of just like ennui. Exactly. There's this feeling in that movie of like, what do we do now? What do we do now? Who are we now?
Right. Yeah. And the other thing that Virtuoso brought up is China's a nation state, right? It's this physical thing, whereas like the Islamic terrorist didn't belong to something that specific. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I would like tack that on to what Russell said because
right. No, I understand that.
Right.
All right, we got to take these super chats because there are people who've been waiting and people got to go to bed soon. So we're gonna take care of some business.
We got to shore up the professionalism so Keaton can still be proud.
Okay. All right. Well, we will let the panel out, but thank you guys very much for calling in, and always a pleasure to talk to you all.
Thank you all. That was a lot of fun.
Bye, Alan. Bye, Tusker.
Bye,
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everybody. All right. Let's blast them out of the sky here one by one. Boom, boom, boom. All right, let's take care of these so we can get to bed. Sorry, folks, for keeping you waiting. Extra Bulla, hell is real, and it's called Downtown Manhattan. Bulla from Brooklyn. Thank you, Bulla. Zach, well done, Russell, on your expose there downtown. Thank you, Zach. We appreciate that. Richie, great point, Russell, a while back. Thank you, Richie, and thanks for calling in. Good to hear from you again, my friend. David, thanks for the $5. Incompetent bungler Alvin Bragg is helping Trump to raise more money and will be vying with Adam Schiff for hashtag biggest resistance losers. Maybe, it's funny.
Yeah.
I thought
it's such a stupid case to bring. Like, I'm sure there are better cases he could have brought if he had waited. Like, I don't really get that.
I'm telling you, in New York, it's going to play well no matter how it happens, right? If he gets off, they're going to say, none of these resistance leaders ever get held accountable for fucking anything. Rachel Maddow is still as popular as ever, right?
true.
It's all going to be because,
True.
oh, Trump, he gets away with everything. It's not fair, right? They'll never fault their own people for bungling the case
That's
against
true.
Trump. That's
Yeah.
why they didn't get mad at fucking Hillary Clinton when she lost. They didn't blame it on her campaign. They blamed it on the Russians. They blamed it on people being stupid and racist and things
And
like that.
if you say otherwise, they're gonna attack you with a cowbell.
I predict Alvin Bragg will run for mayor, and at some point he will be mayor of New York because of this. Even if it blows up in the Democrats' face, which it likely will, I don't think this is how little I think of these voters.
I wouldn't take a stand against that position.
No, I think it's likely, even though I think this case is going to blow up in their face. Keeper of Trackin', thank you. CJ from RBN plays a video of Michael Brooks and Vivek Chibber. They talk about how this is the left in the U.S., predominantly a middle-class formation, explaining why there's little attention to the poor. I've seen that video before. I know he does play it a lot. It is a good video. Brooks had a bunch of great videos. The thing
I've never seen it. I'll have to check that out.
The thing that was really special about Brooks, and Brooks, I didn't agree with Brooks on everything. I thought he was way too kind to way too many of these like lib adjacent people. I mean, he came up through the Sam Cedar show, right? Obviously. But Brooks was, first of all, just enormously talented, incredibly funny. Like those sketches he did with David Feldman, where David Feldman would play the old lefty from way back, the new centrist Democrat. I mean, those were absolutely spot on. But Brooks grew up poor, and he wasn't a rich kid, who had enough time on his hands to stumble into this world of YouTubing and podcasting and things like that.
Right,
And so he came from a real experience to the point where, like, even when he said things that I didn't agree with, I knew it was coming from a sincere place of real life sort of experience. But yeah, that is a good video, and I know CJ has featured that from time to time. So thank you for that, Tom, for $5. Oh yeah, we got this one already, Tom. But thank you. The judge donated to Biden 2020. Like I said, I saw something come all across the wire on that on my Twitter machine here. Steve Adeptus. Don't think I've seen you here before, Steve, but thank you for the donation. It's because a massively corrupt government leads to a corrupted society. The corruption trickles down.
It's basically the philosophy of the Tao Te Ching.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's true. And I think under capitalism, it becomes even worse because under capitalism, you have centers of wealth, of money, of capital. They can become as powerful as the government, if not more. And then you have new sources of corrupted ethics, right? It doesn't just come from the government now. Now it can come from all over the place, from finance, Wall Street, right? That's what happened in 2008, obviously, to the point where you had these financial interests get bigger and more powerful than really a government could get.
I mean, that's where we are now. I mean, we've been there for a while. Like I talked a little bit about this. Like the conservative concern about a state grown too powerful, I don't think I'm too into dystopian sci-fi to dismiss that idea, but we have the opposite now. We have the private sector having grown too powerful. The state having grown too powerful isn't really our problem.
Right. Okay, I'm just making sure we didn't miss any because it seems like we're coming down the home stretch, but if anything more pop up, Russ, just make sure you catch him. Pastor Quentin Tarantino talking about, I guess that was when Ellen joined in. She was talking about that. So thank you, Virtuoso. Robert Penner. Thank you, Robert. People say Twitter isn't real life, but at the protest, it basically was. Well, yeah, because you're getting all those people there. Like, you're getting all the online activists there. Absolutely, yeah.
And
people are losing their ability to relate in a public space, yeah.
Penner kept asking about if we were going to cover the Taibbi Mehdi Hassam. We knew about it. We haven't seen it though.
Yeah,
like Taibbi dropped. Yeah, Taibbi dropped an article called "Fuck MSNBC." That's how I knew it had happened, actually, because he actually said in the article, if you're reading this article, then the interview didn't go well. Like, they didn't treat him fairly. Like, he wasn't going to drop it if they gave him a fair interview. So I'm dying to watch it. And of course we're gonna cover it on our next show.
Yeah, we'll cover it Sunday. Yeah, like it came in a little too late for us to prep it. But yeah, we are on it for sure. Here's my dad gave us another $10. Thanks again, Dad. It turned out to be a long show. I use my massive maleness to intimidate them. Been on the front lines facing these guys too long to waste time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have that. I have video of you. We'll be dropping that.
Oh yeah, in an altercation.
It didn't fit the theme. No, he wasn't an altercation.
No, I know.
If it had been an altercation, I would have used it.
Would have used it. Christian Drake, thanks for the $5. When this indictment doesn't stick, the libs will still respect the rule of law and the justice system, or will it all be Russia's fault again?
You know whose fault it's going to be? Whoever their media tells them to blame. They don't have opinions. They don't have thoughts. They are fucking robots. Whatever they're told to think about it, that's what they'll think about it. What will the spin probably be? Actually, surprisingly, there are headlines in their outlets that are saying, hey, a lot of people are skeptical about whether he should have brought this case. That once legal experts saw the charges, I think I think the Washington Post did something like that. That was like, once they saw the charges, they were like, so he basically took misdemeanors, elevated them to felonies, and divided them up into more charges that really should have been collapsed into the same charges to make it look like this thing. Like even lib law people are saying this is a dumb case.
Yeah, I mean, my theory is that hold on one second, sorry. Zach, did we miss 2 of your super chats? You're saying, Zach? I don't know if that's to us. I thought we got all of yours, but I'll go back and check. But I apologize if we did miss anything. Here we go. Okay, Russell caught a few more here. Let's see here. Look, my guess is that, if and when this fails, right, if it doesn't stick, my guess is they'll make some sort of vague reference to the fact that Donald Trump gets away with everything because he's a billionaire guy. Like they do make those like sort of class adjacent arguments when it comes to Trump, not in any systemic way, but they will make the case that, oh, well, he just gets away with everything.
Yeah,
right. Through a combination of things, either because he's rich or because he's connected or corrupt or he's backed by the Russians or something. They'll say, well, nothing ever happens to him because the system is not fair. They only apply that to him, right? They never think of anything else that way, right? But that would be my guess. Excuse me. Thank you for a good show. William Brooks, thank you for the $10, my friend. We appreciate that very much.
Thank you, man.
James Vandersanden, thanks for the $2. Throw the old bums out, Bulla Tusker 2024. There you go. That's a good ticket. I like that ticket. Yeah, I like that. Cool Blue, the realigning of politics. Yeah, that's what we talk about all the time. That was certainly on display down there outside of the courthouse. Oh, Zach, here, we have some that we are getting to. So maybe this is what you were referencing. Well, yeah, because I think you said, yeah, I think we're caught up on yours, Zach. If we're not, post what it was for free and we'll read it. Across the country, you had Dems fire the doctors and nurses only to pay $3 more for the unschmacked contractors. California fired them. All right.
It's possible. I'd believe it.
Possible. Thank you. Yep, I flagged that question by Robert since I wanted to address it, even though that wasn't a super chat. And yes, we will cover it. Absolutely. We'll cover it on Sunday's show for sure. Perhaps even before then, we might do a special recording that will premiere between now and then. Although, like I said, this week is a really, really tough one for both Russell and myself. It just happened to work out that both of us kind of got slammed with things. I'm organizing a move, and he's got a ton of work this week. Jose, thank you for sticking around. I remember you gave us a super chat way back at the beginning.
That makes more sense, yes.
Oh, okay. As I meant, it stands for Independent Political Organization, not aligned with RNC or the DNC. Okay. So some grassroots activist organizations got involved with the Brandon Johnson campaign.
We should give this cat a freebie because that was a dumb thing for him to have to donate to get rid. To have to explain something to us that we should have known.
My conspiracy.
We are professionals.
Yeah, exactly. They killed Cash App CEO for CBDC. Yeah, that's a crazy story. That the CTO, I don't know if it was CEO or CTO of the Cash App, was stabbed in San Francisco. He's dead.
Oh, yes, I know. I saw that.
That was another story that we would have covered if it came in on time. But yeah. Alrighty, folks. Well, I believe that is our program tonight. I'm pretty sure we got all of our super chats. If we missed one, we very much apologize. We will go back and check, and if we missed one, we will flag it for next time. But we had obviously
from the most disciplined show ever. I think this was the longest non-election night show we ever did. Am I
almost
right about
4
that?
hours.
Yeah.
Almost 4 hours. Well, the show itself was about 2:20, and then we just hung out.
And then we just
like
hung out.
you know when once our segments are done, I kind of consider that the end of the show, so we have time to hang
Fair
out.
enough.
And we had some callers, and so yeah, it was fun. Anyway, thank you guys very much for hanging out with us. Go to patreon.com/DueDissidence. Help us keep this show going and get our film edited and done and released. And we will see you guys back here on Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Thank you guys very much for sticking around. You guys were a great crowd. As always, be safe, be well. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Whoop.
Almost
Courage. Well, there we go.
Bye-bye, folks.
Please clap.